Today, our Seven Sports motor racing team returns to Melbourne and Calder International Raceway in particular for the sixth round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. The impressive Calder complex is situated 26 kilometres north of Melbourne on the Calder Highway. The racetrack has been the home of the Australian Grand Prix for the past 5 years, attracting many of the top overseas stars, including Keke Rosberg, Niki Lauda, Alain Prost, Jacques Lafitte, Roberto Marino, and of course our own Alan Jones. Calder is not one of Australia's largest tracks. It's a mere 1.61 kilometres in length, with 2 long straights and 1 interesting section of corners added only last year. To get off the beaten track here is to experience the ultimate ride on the wild side. The existing layout will change later this year when a NASCAR-style tri-oval is incorporated and Grand National Super Speedway racing is introduced to this country for the first time. Today's sixth round of the Australian Touring Car title matches the front-running BMWs of Jim Richards and Neville Crichton against the Mustangs, Commodores, Toyotas, Jaguar and Volvo. The Nissan ET Super Challenge continues after some hair-raising action last weekend at Adelaide. The Formula 2s return for their championship round, and the Goodyear Laser Leadfoots are here too for our presentation of motorsport from this spectacular strip.
This is the symbol of excellence in Australian television, the Logie. And the symbol of excellence for sporting coverage in the past year is destined for the mantelpiece of the Seven Network's executive motorsport producer, Mr. Jeff Healy, because Friday night, Seven was awarded the Logie for its coverage of the James Hardie 1000 at Bathurst last October. It's the same excellence and expertise we're now able to bring you in our coverage of the 1985 Touring Car Championship. Round 6 here at Calder today promises to be a thriller, if yesterday's qualifying is any indication. We saw the Sydney hard charger Steve Masterton really applying the pressure to the Mobile dealer team, so much so that Peter Brock has ended up with pole position, a fact hotly disputed by the series leader Jim Richards, a fact which sent Dick Johnson into a flat spin. And Masterton charged so hard he finished up in a wall, but it's been repaired and he'll take his place on the grid. In fact, they're taking their place on the grid now for the first of our lead-up races. Let's check the runners.
Thanks, Gary Wilkinson. And we have the drivers on the circuit now for our first televised event. And of course, it is the Nissan ET Super Series. Our first one of the day. Let's take a look on how they will line up. From position 1 in car 1 is Alan Grice of Sydney. From 2 in car 2, Jeff Portman. From position number 3 is Queensland's Dick Johnson. From 4, Queenslander Gary Scott. From 5, young Glenn Seaton. From position 6, Gary Rogers from Victoria. From position number 7 is George Fury. From 8 is Steve Masterton. From 9, Colin Bond. From 10, Jim Richards. Out of position number 11 is John Bauer. And starting at the tail in position number 12 is Peter McKay. And we've seen some sensational action from the Nissan Series over the 2 rounds that have been held so far. And, of course, with Alan Grice on pole position today for this heat, the 5th heat of the series, and Jeff Portman starting right alongside of him, the pressure is certainly going to be on the back markers. The grid, of course, will be reversed for the 2nd heat a little later this afternoon. Drivers will be out on their warm-up lap, just taking off from the start-finishing line now. And Alan Grice leads them away.
Staying out of trouble is the name of the game here, because in 2 rounds, a total of 4 races so far, Colin Bond leads the series on 89 points, but he hasn't in fact won a race. He's finished 2nd, 3rd and 2/5, and he's on 89 points to lead the series from Alan Grice on 87, Peter McKay 85, John Bauer 83 and George Fury on 82.
Coming down towards the Castrol S's. I think we're going to see action in this part of the course today. First time around for the Nissan ETs. As they hang to the right, to the left, and to the right, and to the left again. Car number 3, Dick Johnson of Queensland. A busy day for Johnson, not only in the Nissan ET series with 2 heats, and of course contesting the Eurovox Australian Touring Car Championship in the Mustang and starting out of position 4. Cars coming back down along the straight where they will be gridded, and we'll have them underway very, very shortly.
Big money is the draw card in the Nissan Turbo Super Challenge. $25,000 for the winner, plus a Nissan Skyline. $13,000 for second, $10,000 for third, $6,000 for fourth, and another $4,000 for 5th placing. And these guys are driving super determined at the moment. There's Gary Scott in car number 4, the Queenslander, who drove so well last year in the Nissan team. All of these drivers are virtually household names. Bond, the 75 Australian Touring Car Champion, 3-time Australian Rally Champion. As the siren sounds and they prepare for a start. Their 6-lap journey for the Nissan Turbo Super Challenge, round 3, heat 1.
They're racing and getting away very quickly. On the inside was Alan Grice, but ranging up smartly was Gary Scott. They're coming up here 4 wide, looking for racing room, going into the right-hander at Valvoline. That's how close they are.
Gary Scott out
He's made
wide.
it beautiful, but he's botched that. And they all get hooked up, coming out onto AGC straight. And here comes the charge of the small car brigade down towards the Castrol S's, with Alan Grice still able to hold the lead. Good challenge going on here for second, and look at them approaching this corner, 4 wide.
Dick Johnson slots into second spot despite the biff in the side from Gary Scott. Got Scott still holding down third, up on 2 wheels, something through these S's.
Seaton seems to have come through pretty quickly as well.
You notice the rear, you notice the car lose traction there, the rear wheel off the ground. Nose to tail, extreme through Glowweave corner and back onto the main straight, coming down to complete 1 lap.
Here they come past the strike for the completion of the first lap. Still 5 remain, and Grice firing along beautifully. Dick Johnson has dropped into second spot. Gary Scott up there into third as they make the run to the right-hander at Valvoline. And at this stage, Alan Grice very, very comfortably in front.
Grice won one of the 2 heats in Adelaide last week, determined to continue the good work, steered clear of the early trouble and has opened up a gap now of about 30 metres on Dick Johnson.
Johnson could do with a second-place finish. Had mechanical troubles in the last round at Adelaide, dropped a heat.
Gary Scott using all the track in 3rd place. Glenn Seaton holding down 4th.
Working out the suspension components. To Glowweave again. Still Grice the leader with a break on the field as they come out. There you can see Dick Johnson. Gary Scott is the next one to go through, followed by Glenn Seaton, of course. Portman is there, keeping company with them.
Steve Masterton, too, slotted into 5th, 6th spot at the moment. Over the start-finish line again. Grice out wide. Getting ready for the fast line through the corner.
The cars this weekend are using a new Goodyear Vector tyre. Change of brand from the first couple of rounds. Very deep tread in these tyres.
Very deep on that corner, too.
Helps when they get into the rough.
Top 3 have opened up a gap.
Keeping in mind for the second heat, when the grid is reversed, the winner of this heat will go to the back. There's Peter McKay, still running at the tail of the field, position 12, but he will start on pole position for the second heat. Then they add up the scores.
Because the cars are drawn out of a hat. Well, not the cars literally, but the numbers are drawn out of a hat, so the drivers don't know until just before going out onto the circuit which car they're going to get. All identically prepared, in theory. 3 laps remaining as they go over the start-finish line again, and still Grice leads Johnson, Gary Scott, Glenn Seaton, then Jeff Portman, Steve Masterton, and in car number 8, Steve Masterton, mentioned him twice.
Through Valvoline corner, a little bit of dust storm there as they're using all of the road, particularly the dirt ridge off the exit to the turn. They come down AGC straight, then turn into the Castrol S's, where we pick up our race leader, Alan Grice. That'll give you an idea of the contortions through the bends.
George Fury making up a couple of places back there in the field too. He also was a heat winner in Adelaide last week and would like to improve his points position.
Gary Rogers in car number 6, the victim of the Upside Down Club at Adelaide, and he has McKay behind him running in 12th.
That's the way they were running in Adelaide when he got tipped over.
Exactly. But they've all sorted themselves out today. We haven't had anyone parked on the infield. Alan Grice doing a great job there.
Johnson's getting closer.
Yes, getting a little bit closer is our Queensland driver, Dick Johnson. Not back behind them too far is Scott. There's one off the course. It looked like Seaton, who had dropped about 3 or 4 cars in that corner. And as they go down towards the Castrol S's, Alan Grice is going to find a Queenslander very, very close to him by the time they reach Glowweave. Grice and Dick Johnson. Coming down to the right-hander now at Glowweave, that brings them back onto the straight with 1 lap to go this time around.
So last chance for Johnson. Can he apply sufficient pressure to Grice? If anybody can, Dick can.
We'll have a look as they come along the straight. Johnson losing out just a little bit in the run up to Valvoline.
He's going to have one last chance, and
he's got a little muffler problem too hanging under the car, is Tricky Dick.
Yeah.
Exhaust pipe. He's hanging in there and going after Grice. They're on their final lap. Gary Scott is back in third, but not close enough to make a challenge for first or second.
Here's the last chance coming up for Johnson through the Castrol S's. He knows it too. Keeps the foot flat going into the corner, closes up within a length. But obviously the drag under the car is not doing him any good.
Coming down to Glowweave for the final time, the right-hander. So Alan Grice, by virtue of starting from pole position, has been able to dictate the pace of this event. Comes out of the corner and down now towards the checkered flag. Dick Johnson still holding down second, and that's the way they're going to finish. And across the strike, the win goes to Alan Grice in car number 1. So that's going to make it interesting for the second heat coming up a little later in our telecast. Confirmation of placings, Grice the winner. Dick Johnson finishes in second, and Gary Scott of Queensland third. Car racing locally as a team manager has got to be Frank Gardner. The team BMW, of course, felt the pinch against the V8 Commodores under the old Group C regulations, but it's a whole new ball game now with Group A. From 5 races, 3 wins. A very happy man is Frank Gardner. Well, they're still not smiling all that much.
Really, I got plenty to smile about. It's just a case of, you know, what you can organise, really, isn't it, Mike?
Frank, you, as I mentioned before, must have had a very, very tough run with the car finishing 4th and 5th to all those Commodores for so many years. But you're now enjoying a purple patch, as they say, well up in the points table. Can you go on with it from here?
Well, number one, it's nice to get away from the character building exercise we had over the last 4 years. That was quite a good wrist slashing exercise. But now we are up there. The problem is you're surrounded by talent that also wants to get up there, and it's not that easy to stay there, but we're firing all our best shots at this time and running while we've got a chance to breathe fresh air.
You're a figures man. Have you worked out how quick the Commodores will be when the new homologations come out?
Well, I suppose if they get them, but homologation's a funny old thing. You never always get what you really want. But if they were to get 50% of it, they certainly would be competitive. They are competitive now. Brocky had the fastest lap at Adelaide. We have absolutely nothing up our sleeve at this stage, except we've got Jimmy Richards.
That's a pretty good asset.
That's not a bad asset when you're in a tight corner, believe you me.
And Neville Crichton, Frank, last weekend at Adelaide, getting away from the start. Well, that must have pleased you because Neville hasn't been the best beginner so far in the touring car rounds.
No, he's lying second in the championship, which is pretty nice when you consider every track he looks at. He's looking at it for the first time. You have to learn the track, set the car up and get yourself organised and go motor racing. I know it's the same for a few of the Kiwis, but Neville's acquitting himself the best of the Kiwi bunch.
Well, with today's 6th round here at Calder International, what are the driving instructions for your 2 men?
It's a short race. There's no plan. It's a 10th go, I suppose. As Shakespeare said to Lady Chatterley, we'll go like buggery.
That's Frank Gardner. And he, of course, is leading the JPS BMW team, and they're very hot at the moment. Back over now to Neil Crompton.
Thanks, Mike. Well, 6th in the championship after 5 rounds, Kevin Bartlett in the Mitsubishi Starion. Kevin, you've had a few problems so far.
Well, just a few minor ones, Neil. I went to Japan about 3 weeks ago to try and sort some of them out, and we found quite a few things out. We're on a path with development that we were sort of committed to, but luckily after talking with the Japanese, we were able to reverse that. And hopefully in the next 2 or 3 meetings, we'll find that the car will progress at a faster rate than what it has as far as development's concerned.
Well, what is it that you're actually working on? What's the problem?
Well, it's the engine management system. It's a combination of the ignition system, the boost control system, and the electronics associated with that. It's quite complex, obviously. It's not an everyday job.
You went to Japan just prior to Adelaide. Did you come back with anything tangible that's improved the performance of the car?
Nothing that we could put on immediately. it's a development exercise as far as the things we can do to it are concerned, and we can't just rush out and put it on for a race meeting, because you do have to do a hell of a lot of testing. And of course, Adelaide and Calder being a week apart has only left us time for maintenance on the car. But the 3-week gap to the next race at Surfers Paradise, I think you'll find there's a significant amount of development going on.
Well, talking about Calder here today, the car must be in with a real chance.
At the present time, we're about a second away from the BMW times, and that's on tyres that really were leftovers from Adelaide. I think maybe 6/10. There'll be 6/10 in it. Hopefully we'll be able to knock a few of those Commodores off on the grids.
Still feeling frustrated about the fact that there's so many good parts for this car that you can't use?
Well, yes. I think everybody acknowledges the fact that frustration must be a big part of our game at the moment. We know that the intercooler will make a tremendous difference, plus our brakes, some suspension changes, things that we've been needing on the car, and because of the homologation procedure the way it is, we can't get them until August. Okay, we can't complain about that. That's the same for everybody, and but it does leave you a little bit frustrated, yes.
Well, good luck today, and hope all goes well for later in the championship.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
So Kevin Bartlett hoping here today at Calder for a better result in the Mitsubishi Starion. Now it's back to you, Gary.
Thank you very much, Neil. And we've got a race coming up now for the good old Appendix J touring cars. Pretty big field too, and it's going to provide a lot of interesting competition over 4 laps around here, the Keilor International Raceway. Let's check the grid, see how they line up. Pole position has gone to car 8, Dennis O'Brien in a Mustang, and alongside him on the front row of the grid, John Mann, also in a Mustang, car 54. Then Gary Rogers, car 7, a Mustang, and 78, Peter Roach in a Lotus Cortina. On the next row, number 1, Barry Jupp in a Chevy Nova, and car 14, John Virgo in a Mustang. Car 73, Henry Draper driving a Morris Cooper, alongside him Tony Hunter in a Lotus Cortina. Then car 13, Ken Hastings, also a Lotus Cortina, and car 30, Richard Christian, a Mustang. Position 11 is car 86, Stephen Moritz, a Morris Cooper, and in position number 12, car number 5, Len Reed in a Morris Cooper. Add in another 10 cars to complete the field for this Appendix J Challenge, sponsored by Graham Hunt Motors.
And a strong field too. Just look at the front row. Dennis O'Brien, the Mustang, John Mann, and of course Gary Rogers. Only about 10 seconds away from the start. The Graham Hunt Motors Challenge for Appendix J cars. We'll wait for the light to turn to green. Aha! Oh, one almost stalled as they got off the line beautifully. 54 though was almost fired out of a rocket. John Mann in the Mustang. He'll take over command as they head up for the run to the right-hander. This will be interesting. Into Valvoline corner for the first time and pushing hard. Man in number 54 will lead them onto the back. Rogers dropping up smartly into contention too, using all of the racetrack and then some more. Still finding traffic congestion as they come down now to the Castrol S's for the first time.
And car 28, Tony Hunter, a Lotus Cortina, who was in 8th position off the grid, didn't get off the grid at all, and he's parked back in the pit road. 54 leads John Mann in the Mustang, making every post a winner, really putting the boot in through the Castrol S's, coming up on Glowway for the first time, about 25 metres clear of the opposition.
A real action in this, I was going to say, Gary, is really in the amount of traffic coming through the turn there. You can see Hold It, even an old FJ in there. It's number 1. Barry Jupp also moving up very smartly indeed in the Chevy Nova as we pick up on the race leader, John Mann, as they go up to Valvoline again.
John Mann I spoke to just prior to the event, Mike, and he had the worst case of the flu that I've seen in a long time. The guy looked really crook. He said he felt revolting, didn't know whether he'd race. But he's certainly doing a mean job of it at the moment in car number 54. It's the ex-Des Gibbs car that we've seen for quite a few years in Australian Appendix J. And there's Barry Jupp in car number 1, the Chevy Nova. Had a great run here in a preliminary this morning. He and Gary Rogers running in the same team this weekend. That's Rogers behind in the Mustang, having his once and only drive in this car this weekend, while its usual driver is away for a break. Barry Jupp, well known for his Appendix J performances.
It's only a very short race, 4 laps the distance for the Appendix J. Golden Oldies blast here at Keilor today. Across the strike, 54 is your race leader. That is John Mann and Gary Rogers coming up now on the tail of Barry Jupp as they head up to Valvoline again. Oh, Jupp gets it out of shape. Oh, and his teammate had to take quite evasive action there to miss cleaning him up. Ball managed to go through the turn. Jupp still sitting there. Rogers has left the scene, and Mann has it now comfortably under control.
And Dennis O'Brien moves up into second place in car number 8 in the other Mustang.
Yeah, well, that's cost Gary Rogers his chance in the race, hasn't it? And John Mann continues to lead from Dennis O'Brien. Then we've got car 14, John Virgo, in yet another Mustang. And then car 30, Richard Christian, who's made up a big amount of space. Here we go again. Let's take a look at this. Barry Jupp in the Chevy Nova. Just a little out of shape through that turn, and his teammate almost collected him head on. Rogers disappears off in the dirt, and as I said, that's cost him his chance in the race.
1 lap now remaining for the leader in car 54, John Mann from Shepparton. And quite a healthy gap back to his nearest rival, Dennis O'Brien in yet another Mustang. These cars virtually in the same trim that they raced in just on 20 years ago. There has to be at least 100 of them manufactured, and they have to be manufactured prior to December 1964. So it's a great representation of the way Australian touring car racing used to be. The names like Gagan and Moffat and Jane and Beechey used to storm their way around Calder International Raceway.
Well, things have changed just a little bit, but not so for John Mann. This car's still going great guns in 1985 and leading the field as they come round on the final lap for the checkered flag in this Appendix J challenge. There he goes, the winner across the line, gets the flag. John Mann, great effort in car 54. Checking on the minor placings, you'll find that Dennis O'Brien has run third, and I think John Virgo in fact third. Yes, here they come now, official. The winner in car 54 is John Mann, driving a Mustang. In second place, car number 8, Dennis O'Brien, also in a Mustang. And third place to car 14, guess what? A Mustang driven by John Virgo.
Okay, how you hunties now, Wilco? Well, this is Calder International Raceway, where the straightaway comes down to a hard right-hand corner. And I tell you what, during the race there'll be a lot of passing goes on there, which is basically a complete U-turn, third gear, up the fourth, and then into fifth to the right-hander, which is pretty well the part of the Phillies Grand Prix type circuit in this part, which I'm sure will improve later on. Right, now to the left, again to the right, then hard into the boot here, all the way through this one, coming up to Glowweave and the concrete wall. Go run right out and clip the apex on the way out with your foot hard in it, and back on the main straight. That's Calder International Raceway.
The big switch from Falcon to Commodore has meant a lot of hard work for Sydney driver Steve Masterton, and it almost came undone in the last qualifying session yesterday. Steve, what happened?
Well, we're taking amateur racing pretty seriously this year, and we're trying pretty hard. I put the best effort I can in, and a small driving error on my part brought the car into the fence at the end of the back straight. But there is a little bit of work to do, but the boys don't seem to think it's too serious.
Steve, Commodores are coming out of the woodwork now. You've not only got to cope with them, but of course the front runners like Jim Richards in the BMW.
Very hard to beat. Very hard to beat. I think we've got our hands pretty full until August, where I understand there will be some modifications coming out to help the heavier cars to bring them up to a more even level. So I'd say by the long distance rounds you'll see tenths of seconds separating the first dozen or so cars.
What about today?
I'll be doing the best I can to bring home a victory. It's been a long time between drinks.
Steve Masterton, he's a hard charger. Keep an eye on him in round 6 of the Australian Touring Car Championship here at Calder today.
Thank you, Gary. Cars on the grid now for the continuation of the 1985 Australian Formula 2 Championship, round 5. Let's take a look at the way they'll line up for their 30-lap journey. On the front row, Peter Glover in the Cheetah with a time of 42.41. Alongside him, Peter McCrow, car number 25. The second row, Brian Sampson, car 78. Alongside him, Michael Hall, 27. Row number 3, Paul Thomas, car number 28. And alongside him, car 4, John Wise. On the 4th row, Peter Lana with Steve Noble. The 5th row, Steve Swain and Graham Blee. And the 6th row, Vincent McLaughlin and Arthur Abrahams having his first run in his new Cheetah.
Another 6 runners to round out the field. Arthur Abrahams, as Neil mentioned, in 12th spot. Then we've got Craig Sparks in car 33 driving a Richards. Rob Newman in car 26 in a Cheetah. And Mark Potter in car number 5, driving an Elfin. Mike Drewer, car 45 in a Cheetah. Wayne Ford in 31, a Ralt, and Peter Behag in car 14. As they set off on their warm-up.
Leader in the championship so far, as we have seen on 7 Sport, is Peter Glover. We picked up the action at Winton back at round 1. We saw them at Sandown for round 2. We missed them at Lakeside round 3, but we saw them again at Amaroo Park for round 4. Peter Glover, the Melburnian, ex-Victorian and Australian karting champion, there in the black car number 1, is the man that dominates the championship in the Cheetah Mark 8 with the Judd Golf Brabham engine. And a number of newcomers to the Formula 2 ranks this weekend, and a number of the fellows that normally follow the series not here, unfortunately. It seems as though the karting guys are the fellows that are adapting very well to Formula 2 at the moment. One fellow rejoining the fray in car number 27 is Michael Hall, who's done quite a bit of racing overseas, spent a few years in California where he raced first of all in Formula 5000 and in fact was the importer of Elfin racing cars, having purchased them from Gary Cooper in South Australia. He incidentally is going back to Europe towards the end of this year to run in some World Endurance Championship races in a Group C Alba sports car. That's the man there behind Peter Glover in car 27. Driver back behind him in car 25, Peter McCrow, another Melburnian, has given Peter Glover plenty to think about so far in this championship season. And the two of them, I should imagine, will fight this one out neck and neck for their 30-lap battle around the 1.6-kilometre course.
Well, Neil, there's a bit of a sameness about the front of the grid, but the man you mentioned, Michael Hall, could add some spice, I think, to this round here today. He didn't have much luck at his last couple of outings, and he's only just got back into motorsport in Australia. The experience of the last couple of races he's had have done him the world of good, obviously, and to qualify 4th on the grid today is a pretty impressive performance, and he can give these guys a bit of hurry up.
Another couple of young fellows out there as well. In fact, Paul Thomas in car number 28, driving John Bauer's old Elfin Formula 2 car. And John Wise, after coming out of karting and being a very successful karting driver, has made it onto the grid on the 3rd row in car 4 in his first Formula 2 drive, which is not bad considering it's Australian Championship.
You mentioned John Bauer. Maybe we should go and round him up and we could bring him in here and give us some commentary on this Formula 2 race once it gets underway.
Coming up for the start now of round 5. The Australian Formula 2 Championship. This is the United Auto Sound Cup, coming to you from Keilor International Raceway in Victoria. And we're only about 12 seconds away from the start of this afternoon's round.
30 lightning laps.
Lights turn to green and Glover away quickly, but the man in the middle was just as quick, McCrow, and then right on the outside, Sampson making a good start as number 28 with problems. Immediately was Paul Thomas as we picked him up going into Valvoline for the first time in the run down AGC straight.
Michael Hall caught out wide there. He snuck about a half length at the start too. I don't know whether they might ping him for that.
Well, McCrow got out pretty cleanly. He did a bit of jostling there with Hall in 27, whom Gary has just mentioned. And one young fella that we spoke about before who should have got away better than he did was Paul Thomas in 28. But Peter Glover here dominating proceedings in the opening lap, coming through Glowweave turn onto the main straight, unleashing about 185 brake horsepower from the single camshaft 4-cylinder Judd Golf engine, and leads at the end of lap 1 from car number 25, Peter McCrow. Then car number 27 in 3rd position is Hall. Glover, the twice winner at the first round at Winton, a second and a first at Sandown, finished second in a thrilling dice between himself and McCrow, and locks the brake as he goes towards the Castrol S's. And, of course, the winner at Amaroo just a few weeks ago.
No sooner said than done, Neil. A man who knows all about open-wheeler racing. John Bauer joins us in the 7 commentary position. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Gary.
Does your heart good to see this, does it?
Yeah, it's good. I like this sort of car. I spent a lot of years racing Formula 2 both in Tasmania and nationally in Gary Cooper's Elfins, and it's a very good little class.
As forecast, you saw there the penalty board out for Michael Hall. He did jump a clear halfling on the start, and that's going to cost him a minute, so he's really got a big job in front of him.
Yeah, well, in a 30-lap race, you really haven't got any chance of making up time when you cop a minute penalty.
Peter McCrow in the Cheetah Mark 8, a car which he alternates between Australian Formula 1 and Formula 2. John Bowe, of course, leads the Australian Formula One Championship after one round at Bonnaroo. It must be a fairly awesome sort of a task, John, to be constantly changing a car's configuration like Peter must have to do.
Well, he would have to adapt his driving style somewhat because the Formula 2 cars do not generate the grip that the Formula 1 cars have. They run on smaller tyres and a slightly harder compound. So consequently, he's got to change his style a little bit. But he's doing a very good job. I mean, I remember watching Peter McRae racing at Calder. It must have been at least 20 years ago when I was a fairly young lad, and he's still driving very well.
Well, he's the only man that's been able to really apply pressure to Peter Glover so far in the series for 85. Preparation, I think, John, is what it's all about. You've got to hand it to Glover in that respect.
He's very good. He's I don't know the guy personally, but he runs a very professional operation. He's an ex-karter as well, which seems to be the breeding ground for today's racing driver. And I'd like to see him in Australian Formula 1, really. I think having dominated last year and looks like dominating this year, he really should probably have a go play with some of the big kids.
Paul Thomas, a very dejected man, not getting off the grid.
That car, in fact, Gary, is John's old car, car 28.
That was the last Formula 2 car that the late Gary Cooper built, and I raced it at Sandown in 1980, and it had a debut win. It was a very good little car, and he's only a young guy, and he's adapting very quickly, another ex-kart racer.
Glover hasn't done too badly, you know, since coming out of the karting business with 26 Australian and Victorian championships. He went on to finish second in the Formula 2 Championship in 1983. He won it last year, as we've mentioned. As John mentioned a minute ago, looks set to just about do it again for 85.
Coming up to lap a slower runner already is Glover, and does so. As he spears through the Castrol S's once more, coming up on Blow Weave to complete 6 out of the 30 laps for this round of the Australian Formula 2 Championship, round 5.
He's just got a little gap on Peter McRae, but it's a nice, you know, probably a second and a half, and it's enough to just let you dictate the pace of the race.
It's a fair way in these cars, a second and a half,
It is,
isn't it?
yeah, particularly around this circuit because it's very hard to make up the ground.
Somebody has done a little damage there. Arm goes up, and you can see the drivers all swinging onto the infield to keep clear of this. Car number 6.
Well, 46, actually.
46.
Steve Noble in the Richards, a car built in South Australia by Ian Richards, who was the Formula 2 champion a couple of years ago. And look at Glover here fighting his way through traffic, comes up very quickly onto the back of Peter Behag, man who's worked in your team, John.
Peter Behag worked for us at the Australian Grand Prix last year on Francois Hainaut's car, and he's built the car completely himself in his backyard, virtually, in his workshop, and it really is a credit to him. It's a work of art. He's made absolutely everything for it. This is its debut run, and he didn't even get it started until Saturday, and he had a misfire yesterday, so it's asking a bit much for it to perform well today. But I think, having looked at the car, I think it's got a lot of potential.
That's where it went, and that's the unfortunate incident that's put pay to the chances today, anyway, of Steve Noble. The race leader continues to be Peter Glover in the Cheetah car, number 1. And that gap now becoming quite considerable to Peter Macro in second spot. A good second and a half. And having completed 8 laps, Glover still leading. Macro in second spot.
We'll notice, Gary, on the front left-hand side of Peter McRae's car, as car 45 locks up a brake. That's Mike Drewer, who was in the pits there for a couple of laps. The wing is silver at the moment because yesterday in practice, when he was trying to thread his way through some of the slower traffic, he just managed to rip the wing off. They did a bit of work between the first and second sessions, and the car is back in pretty good shape once again. Glover having quite a bit of difficulty here getting through, and so too is Peter McRae. It's something that all open-wheeler drivers, I'm sure, take a lot of care with John Bowe, particularly in a longer race.
It's a bit hard. Most of the drivers are pretty good, but you always get the odd one that's, you know, like doesn't look at his mirrors or something, and it's frustrating to try and build up a gap, and you get a 2-second lead on somebody, and then all of a sudden you lose your second and a half on it. It's a very frustrating position to be in.
All right, coming up, almost 10 laps completed out of 30 in round 5 of the Formula 2 Championship Australia, and the leader is car number 1, Peter Glover. In second place in car 25 is Peter Macro, and in third place, car 78, Brian Sampson. Round 5 of the Australian Formula 2 Championship at Calder International Raceway, 18 laps remaining. This is the third place getter, and I was going to say fourth place getter coming through, but it's not in fact. 78 Brian Sampson is holding down third. Car 27 behind him. Michael Hall is in fourth position on the track, but has been penalised a minute for jumping the start. Brian Sampson, you're talking about long-time veteran campaigners, but still racing well. There's another one, John Barr.
Well, I raced against Brian Sampson 10 years ago, and he was a veteran then. But he still drives very, very well. He loves motor racing. He also drives in Group A touring cars in Astarian. So, you know, he's really a true enthusiast of motorsport.
He's got a very interesting engine configuration this weekend. Whilst many of the competitors are using the very popular Judd Golf engine or Golf engine, Sambo's got a Ford Cosworth BDA bottom end, but he's changed the top end, John. What's that all about?
Well, his business motor improvements are in the engine game anyway, and he made a conversion to convert the bottom end of the BDA to a single overhead cam configuration, and he just takes the BDA head off and puts the single cam head on. The unfortunate part about it is that it ends up being too heavy because the Judd engines are very light. They've got an alloy head, where Sambo's engines are a cast iron head, so it ends up being as heavy as a Formula Mondial car. So he's at a sort of a 50-kilogram disadvantage there. But it still it performs very well. I mean, he's running third in the race, so he can't be going that bad.
Yes, he's around about 50 kilos worth off. The total weight of the car yesterday at scrutineering was 495 kilograms. But
that's heavier than my Mondial Rolt, so, you know, that's like giving away 20 horsepower. And the other unfortunate part about it is that it's all hanging out the back, and it does upset the balance of the car a little bit and tends to overheat the tyres.
That's one of the problems that he has got. I was looking yesterday at a set of tyres that he was using, and they were really grainy. They got very hot in practice. Just half distance now, John, as we look at Brian Sampson in car number 78. One of the equalising factors in Formula 2 is the fact that the cars use the same tyre. It's what they call a control tyre on the entire field. It's a fairly hard compound slick racing tyre, and a tyre which, as I said before, at least even out the cost. There's Peter Glover in car number 1, the leader of the event at the moment. It looks as though he's going to maximise his advantage and continue that points lead in the series. Another 30 points will come his way at the completion of this race, if he continues in the spot that he's in at the moment. Picked up a new sponsor for the Amaroo round 4, Dinsan being a very large nursery organisation in Melbourne and Sydney. The gap continues to widen between Peter Glover.
Yes, back to second place getter Peter Macro. It's now the best part of 120 metres. Through the bottom of the course again. Here he comes on some of these slower cars. Overhauling them now with giant strides. It's Peter Glover, the race leader. The car has run superbly from the moment he put it on the track at Winton.
Yes, the Mark 8 was given its race debut back at Winton.
In fact, he only had it uncrated, I think, for about 4 or 5 days before he put it on the track.
The car that he ran last year, the Mark 7, was sold to John Wise in car number 4, who, along with Michael Hall at the moment, carries a 1-minute penalty for his trouble at the starting line. The interesting thing with these cars, John Bow, is that they are very much modelled on the current generation of Formula Pacific or Atlantic cars, if you like, from overseas, with inboard suspension and making full use of ground effects.
There's not a lot of difference really between these cars and the Mondials, our Australian Formula 1. They run, as I said earlier, on slightly smaller tyres and harder tyres, so they don't generate the grip, but the chassis principles are the same. Brian Sheed, who builds Cheetahs, uses the same car virtually for both classes, and I think there has been talk of Peter Glover running in some of our Formula 1 races later in the year, so it would be very good to see.
That's the man in question, and coming up on 2/3 distance in round 5 of the Formula 2 Championship, it's Peter Glover in car number 1, still leading Peter Macro in 25 and Brian Sampson in 78.
At Calder International Raceway, as we look here at car number 4, John Wise with just a little less than 9 laps remaining. John Wise, 7 years in the karting industry and has done very well with some Victorian and national championships. He's actually a motor mechanic by trade, but has done a lot of test driving for GMH down at their proving grounds in Lang Lang in southeastern Victoria. And the car that we look at here at the moment is the car that won the 1984 Australian Formula 2 championship. It's a Mark 7 Cheetah with a locally built Golf engine prepared by Chris Hockey. Peter Glover comes up onto the left-hand side of screen there in car number 1 to put another lap on John Wise, who we understand at this stage is carrying a 1-minute penalty for creeping at the starting line. They had a little problem in this car yesterday with the brakes binding, which they thought they had now rectified, but the car looks a little bit dodgy under brakes, John.
Yes, it does. It looks, you know, in technical terms, it looks like it's sort of bottoming out on the suspension or something. He's having a fairly hard time of it. I watched it last year when Peter Glover had it, and it handled very well, so they've probably changed it around a bit or something.
Glover's left him for dead there, haven't they?
Yeah, you can see the new car has much more downforce, as in ground effects, and the new Mark 8 Cheetah is really the equivalent of any type of car like this in the world. It's a very, very, very efficient car. The old Mark 7 of Wise is a sort of a semi-ground effects car. It's still got outboard rear suspension, so it doesn't have the downforce that the newer cars have got.
Still in all, it's not a bad effort, you know. He qualified in 6th position on the grid, and it's his first competitive drive in Australian Formula 2 after having spent a lot of time in karting. He had one run at a club meeting here in the car, so he's got his act together pretty well. There's a lot of fellas behind him.
He's doing very well. It's, as I said before, karting seems to be the way to learn to drive in this sort of competition. Overseas, it's been the trend for years. Most of the Formula 1 Grand Prix drivers spent their youth in karts, and my advice is to any young budding Formula 2 or Formula 1 driver is they should get themselves a kart when they're about 10 years old and get into it.
There's been some top names come out of karting, as you mentioned, Vern Schuppan for one, and also our own Dick Johnson spent a lot of time in karts right up until very recently.
I raced against Dick. I've only ever driven a kart once in an invitation race in Tasmania a couple of years ago, and Dick was a guest driver as well, and he absolutely blew me off the face of the earth, so he's a very accomplished kart driver. I think he's been practicing a bit more than me.
John Wise, car number 4, the man we're talking about here at the moment in last year's Cheetah Mark 7. Been passed by Peter Glover in car 1 and about to be passed by car 25, Peter McCrow, the green car, who's still in 2nd place but continues to lose ground. We'll see him here in the background. There goes Peter Glover on the left-hand side of screen, and in the background there is Peter McCrow.
It's the distance between 1st and 2nd, and John Wise doing a great job, as we said, and in 5th position on the racetrack, but keep in mind the 1-minute penalty and the fact that he has been lapped by Peter Glover. Just goes to show you how well Glover is running, with 5 laps remaining out of 30 in this 5th round of the Australian Formula 2 Championship here at the Calder International Raceway in Melbourne. John Bauer has to leave us to go and make other preparations at this time. We thank you very much, John, for coming up and giving us an insight into these open wheelers.
Thanks very much for the opportunity. This is harder than driving. I think I'll go back to driving.
Okay, thank you very much, John Bauer. Let's get back to the racetrack, and we see Peter Macro still vainly in pursuit of Peter Glover as the race comes towards its conclusion. You can see there John Wise, very wisely, waving Peter Macro by as Macro goes into the bottom corner again. And as he comes around that corner, Glover has opened up the lead to about 240 metres.
It's been a wonderful class, Gary. Just whilst you were talking, had a chance to flick back through the records and look at some of the people that have come out of Australian Formula 2. Names like Max Stewart, Larry Perkins, Jeffrey Brabham, Leo Gagan, Brian Sheed, Richard Davison, John Smith, Lucio Cesario, who's running this year in the World Endurance Championship in Europe. So it's been a great proving ground for many of the up-and-coming young drivers in this country, and some big names have come out of this class.
Peter Glover continues to lead round 5 here at Calder International Raceway, having his way again in the competition. He's been a hard man to beat since the series opened.
A long way down this straight, isn't it?
A long way for them. And just listening to what John Bauer said earlier, some of the drivers being able to adapt their cars perhaps to Mondial racing later in the season, that would be most interesting indeed, because it would improve the fields for Mondial. Because So I think we have a cliff stick situation here where Glover needs someone else to race him as he's going all the way to the flag.
Man in car 3 is Steve Swain. He's in 6th position on the racetrack, driving a compact Hardman. There's quite a variety of makes in Formula 2 racing in Australia at the moment. But to be with the front runners, it would seem that Cheetah is the way to go.
Cheetah is the one that certainly setting the pace at the moment. But the Hardman, of course, the Hardman name coming from Jim Hardman, who's been responsible for looking after Alfredo Costanzo for the last few years.
Peter Glover going through there in car number 1, and we're picking up, coming down the main straight, and I think he's about to get the last lap board, in fact. Yes, he does. Last lap board is out for Peter Glover, the race leader, and doing it very well. Still with a big space, 260 metres lead now over Peter Macro in car 25 in 2nd place. Brian Sampson still safely holding down 3rd in car 78. There goes Glover, the black number 1. Just past Steve Swain, in fact, in car 3. Brian Sampson, in fact. So he's put a lap on the 3rd place getter.
It's not bad. As I said before, I don't know what they're going to do to stop him this season, coming out of the last bend. And Mr. Consistency in the Formula 2s, Peter Glover, coming up to take the checkered flag, and he takes out the United Auto Sound Cup round 5 of the Australian Formula 2 Championship here today at Keilor. Let's recap the placings. Glover the winner, 2nd place going to Peter Macro, and 3rd place goes to Brian Sampson.
Of Calder International Raceway, Peter Glover, the winner of round 5 of the 1985 Australian Formula 2 Championship. Peter, you've done it again.
Yes, it was a very good race for us. It was relatively easy. I mean, Peter Macro always makes us work hard, but no, we finished first, and it's good.
You were saying to me just a few moments ago, things were pretty slippery out there.
Yeah, extremely so. Matter of fact, when the oil first got dropped, I thought I was a goner down at Valvoline Corner, but managed to stay on, and as you saw, the lap times dropped some 3-4 seconds after that. It was a pity, but I suppose it added a bit of spice to the race.
We've been sitting up there wondering just who's going to challenge you for the latter part of the season.
Peter Macro, I'll tell you now.
He's had the pressure on the whole way?
Yes, he has. You know, he hasn't let up, and he's too good a competitor to let up. He'll give us a hard time for the rest of the year, that's guaranteed.
As a guest commentator, we had John Bowe up there, of course, who leads the Australian Formula 1 Championship, and he's suggesting you should go into Formula 1.
Yeah, it's a little bit more money than I'd like to spend, but Formula 2 is a good class. It has confront bigger fields than Mondial, and at the moment that suits me. I prefer to race against a larger grid.
Well, congratulations once again. You continue to lead the championship. Look forward to seeing you a little bit later on in the season.
Thank you very much.
Peter Glover, the winner of round 5 of the 1985 Australian Formula 2 Championship. We'll be back after this break with more Nissan Turbo Super Challenged action right after this.
Here come the big guns for Heat 2 of the Nissan Turbo Super Challenge here today at the Keilor International Raceway. Alan Grice won the first heat from Dick Johnson and Gary Scott after Johnson and Scott had a little set-to out of the first corner. But there wasn't too much action for the front runner from there on. Grice had it all his own way. And if somebody else doesn't get a hurry on, Grice could end up leading the series after this heat if he puts up another good performance, because Colin Bond, the series leader, not all that far in front of Grice going into today's round. And unless Bondi can come up with something pretty spectacular in this upcoming race, Grice might well start marching away towards the big prize money.
And big prize money it is. Peter Mackay has pole position for this race, keeping in mind he started off the back in the first heat earlier today. So Grice will go to the back of the field. That makes it almost impossible. We haven't had anyone come off the back and win one yet. But here comes the field along now to line up prior to the start of Heat 2. That's Heat 6 in the series of the Nissan Turbo Super Challenge.
The marshals about to grid them up for a start. This is 6 laps again. 1.61 kilometres, as we've told you. And there's John Bowe, the man that was just so kind a few moments ago to be up here with us and to give us his expert view on that round of the Formula 2 Championship. We'll check out the grid, I think. As Mike said, it has been, in fact, reversed on the earlier heat. So this is the way it shapes up for round 2 of the Nissan Turbo Super Challenge. On pole position, car number 12, Peter McKay, and alongside him on the front row in car 11, John Bower. Then in position 3 is car number 10, Jim Richards. Position 4, car number 9, Colin Bond. On the third row of the grid, we've got car 8, Steve Masterton, car 7, George Fury. On the next row, car 6, Gary Rogers, and car 5, Glenn Seaton. Then car number 4, Gary Scott. Car 3 is Dick Johnson, and on the last row, car 2, Jeff Portman, and car number 1, the first heat winner, Alan Grice.
Well, Peter McKay has it all to do off pole position. He's been lucky enough to, or unlucky enough, to pull the back line. A couple of heats so far, but always winds up on the front line for the later heat each afternoon. John Bowers, Gary mentioned, starts from position 2. Interesting second row, Jim Richards and Colin Bond. Steve Masterton and George Fury. And Dick Johnson, who performed so well in the earlier heat, starts out of position number 10 in this 6-lapper.
Cars move away on their warm-up lap, Mike. I've just had a little opportunity here to add up the points tally after the first heat in round 3, and as I unofficially make it off my charts here at the moment, Alan Grice should lead with 117 points. In second position at this stage would be Colin Bond with 103, and sharing third placing, 3 drivers at the moment, Peter McKay, John Bow and Dick Johnson. So that's going to be quite interesting as they come to this second heat of round 3. So I'll continue through and work some of these other point scores out, but that looks like the unofficial top 5 or 6 at this stage.
And that'll probably change again after this heat.
That's for certain.
As we mentioned before, Grice off the back. That's a pretty hard task for any driver. So much talent and the car's so equal. But on a track the size of Calder with that S-bend section down there at Castrol, it's almost impossible. The car's coming in past the crowd in Glowweave Corner. I've been impressed here over the last few days with the amount of work being carried out at Calder International Raceway. As mentioned before, the new 1.5 mile tri-oval being built within the complex, and they are working 24 hours a day on it. They have a night shift in, they're working under floodlights, so they're obviously very, very serious about their big race coming up towards the end of October. So the front line is set. Peter McKay and John Bow. So watch the charge to the first corner up to Valvoline.
Yes, Alan Grice now at the rear of the grid is likely to come charging through like a steam train coming down to the first corner, so look out for the action.
They're racing and getting away in heat 2 of the Nissan Turbo Super Series here, and at the inside position, McKay was away very smartly indeed, being forced off the track there. One of the drivers, they head up to the top corner for the first time, and going through there very, very quickly to lead as they come onto the, through the rough too, using many and varied lines through Glowweave or through Valvoline Corner as they come down the back straight.
Steve Masterton got a dream run through on the inside there to move into second place.
Bow has gone through to take over the lead. Masterton drops into second as they come down to the Castrol S's, and they are very, very close indeed for the run now down to Glowweave.
John Bowers had a nice old nudge in that first heat as well. Look at the right-hand side of the front guard.
Now they're into Glowweave Corner.
Masterton in second spot. They line up for the big run down the main straight here at Keilor.
Coming down to the line, and with 1 lap completed and 5 remaining, Bowers gone through. Masterton dropping into second place. Moving up very quickly indeed is Colin Bond.
And Jim Richards too, tucked in there behind them. The wheel up there at the rear, losing a little traction as they go through the corner. By Colin Bond, and he'll be looking forward to posting big points here in this heat because he was the series leader coming into today's round. Bow continues to lead. Look at them across the track. Richards, Bond.
And I tell you also who's made a tremendous start is Dick Johnson up to 6th. Not bad at all.
Coming off the second last row of the grid, Johnson.
He's passed 4 cars coming down to Glowweave again, and still John Bow will lead out of the turn with Masterton in hot pursuit. Bond Bond also well positioned, and Johnson starting to come through the pack. Once again across the start-finishing line here. John Bower, Masterton not that far back behind him. Jim Richards into third now. Look at Bowers locking up the brake as they head up into the right hand.
Alan Price is up into ninth spot off the rear of the grid. He really hasn't been able to make up that much ground, nowhere near as much as Steve Masterton, as Dick Johnson rather. Off the second last row has come up to challenge the place getters now. And Masterton really beginning to put the pressure on John Bower. Through the Castrol S's again. Past the spectators on the hill.
Masterton gets a little closer. That was a new line from Johnson. Didn't want to use the curb there, so he went straight over the dirt there to miss it completely.
That's how he lost the exhaust pipe in the first heat, the same sort of manoeuvre.
John Bower across the start-finish line leads Steve Masterton. Third place in car number 10 is Jim Richards. Then Colin Bond, and then Dick Johnson. Johnson launching a challenge on Bond as they go into the bottom corner. Masterton in second spot, sandwiched in between the leader, John Bower, and Jim Richards. In third spot.
There's Scott out in the rough as they go down the back, but he's managed to find his way back onto the bitumen. Fury in amongst these with Johnson. They're having a great old scrap. Nothing between that.
Here comes Grice getting a move on now.
Yes, Grice has put about 4 behind him after starting off the back. We wait for them on the approach now to Glowweave Corner again.
Jeff Faulkner wonders why he ever gave up rallying for this.
Just the circuit, a bit of everything here. John Bower coming off Glowweave, still leads from Steve Masterton. Jim Richards is the next one. Bond being the next one back behind them, and then Dick Johnson. With about 2 laps remaining in the Nissan Turbo Super Challenge here from Keilor. Many of the drivers using the outside line, a couple of them sneaking up on the inside as well. There's our race leader, John Bower. Doing this very, very nicely indeed. Masterton has found himself now under attack from Jim Richards as they come down AGC straight towards the Castrol S's.
John Bower was saying before to me, Mike, that with the new Goodyear tyres on these cars, not quite as taily as they used to be. You recall last weekend at Adelaide when they came to the right-hander at the end of the straight, they were unbelievably sideways.
This is playing into the hands of John Bower. He's smiling up front while Masterton, Richards and Johnson go at it hammer and tong.
Well, this would lift John Bower's point score up to 125 points, Gary, if he can stay where he is at the moment. He currently has 95 after 2 rounds and 1 heat. 1 lap now remaining for our leader, John Bower, in car number 11. Behind him, Steve Masterton in hot pursuit. Jim Richards in car 10. Colin Bond right behind him. This could be a fascinating finish for these minor placings.
So look at this on the inside. Richards has taken Masterton there on the inside. Bow's still clear. There you can see them as they head down AGC straight for the final time. Bowers there, Masterton trying to fight back here on the outside of Richards, but Richards should get him. No, he doesn't. Masterton gets him again, but now Richards has his moment as they go onto the rough. Oh, and Masterton almost looping it. 3-chord out on the outside that time was Dick Johnson making his last-minute dive for the turn. Coming down to Glowweave for the final time. John Bower's going to go on and win this one. They come out of the final corner. Bower's already heading in the direction of the checkered flag. Richards and Masterton still at it as they come out of the bend and come up now for the checkered flag. And the win in heat number 2 today at Keilor is in fact going to go to John Bower. Second spot in car number 10 is Jim Richards. And Dick Johnson in car number 3 has got through to 3rd place, but we'll recap the placings for you. The win, of course, going to John Bower in car number 11. Second place goes to Jimmy Richards from New Zealand, and 3rd place goes to Queensland's own Dick Johnson.
Marvellous what a bit of TV commentary can do for you, Johnny Bower. You got back out there in the saddle and just took off like smoke and they never got near you.
Yeah, it must have been that sort of experience, and commentating on the Formula 2 race made me drive a little bit cleaner and not so crazy.
It hasn't done you any harm either in the overall point score. You can't be far off the lead.
Well, I didn't have a very good race in the first heat. I got into a bit of trouble in the early part of the race and knocked a few headlights out and things like that, so I don't know how I'm going overall. But it's a series, and you've got to hang in there and try and be there at the finish.
Yeah, big bucks at the finish too.
Yeah, that's why everybody goes so nuts.
Alan Grice, first heat winner, and I think you might be the overall series leader now. They're still tabulating the points, but Bondi was only just in front of you coming into today's round, so a win, and you finished not far behind the place getters in that second heat.
Oh, I've done the sums.
Oh, have you? Yes, I'll bet you have.
I'm learning.
Quite a race.
Yes, it was. I got a boom at the start and picked up a lot of places, and then got one right up the backside, which sort of made me... The end result of that was that I went back a few, but no, it was good. I enjoyed the run, and the motor cars, they keep coming back and getting it every week, and they keep taking it.
I think all the boys enjoy it. Dick Johnson, second heat there. You came off the second last row and really came out smoking.
Well, actually, we got a really good start, and a lot of guys seem to go pretty crazy into the first corner, which sort of leaves everything sort of wide open for those who sort of wait. And I just sort of hung around and waited and copped a few hits here and there, but I was right after that.
Oh, there goes the siren, and that signals time for the start of the next race, and it's time for us to take a break. Then we'll be back at Calder International.
There's two sides to the Peter Brock that we all know. One as lead driver for the Mobile Holden dealer team, 4 times James Hardy winner and Australian Touring Car Champion. The other as managing director of the Holden dealer team Special Vehicles division. Since 1980, when the company was formed, to say the least, it's been something of a success. In fact, they are now the 5th largest manufacturer of cars in this country. As we've mentioned so far in the Australian Touring Car Championship, the rules change on August the 1st. And Peter Brock this week wheeled out the new car to suit the new rules. What it means is a successful marriage between race team and business operation for the mutual benefit not only of Brock, but to other Commodore users.
We have homologated the base car in December '84, and we always knew we'd have a little bit of a struggle in the Touring Car Championship this year with that car. It's overweight. In fact, we have to carry 180 kilograms of lead ballast. The engine would probably have 300 horsepower, which is probably a little less than our competitors, has 4-speed transmission and a few limitations. Now, despite the fact that we knew we'd be struggling a little, the car has performed a lot better than we expected, and we've had a win, as you're well aware, and a second place, and we're quite happy. The new car, of course, will be 75 kilograms lighter. It will have considerably more horsepower. It will have 5-speed transmission, and as a result will be much more competitive. In fact, we think we'll be in there with a chance at Bathurst in October. It must be remembered that we're just applying for our second homologation, and unlike our competitors or the manufacturers of the cars they're driving, who have had, say, 2 years or 3 years experience in Group A racing in Europe, not only have they had that experience, but they've had the advantage of possibly 5 or 6 homologation periods where they can introduce new components to make their cars perform better. And so we're quite pleased at this stage with the performance of the Commodore, and are looking forward to a much more competitive car at Bathurst this year, of which the blue car is the basis for.
Now, you've already decided to go ahead and produce the cars. How many do you need, and over what period of time?
Well, since we've homologated the base car in December last year, which is we're required to build 1,000 identical units in a 12-month period. Once having done that, you, under the FISA rules, can then have what is known as a sporting evolution, of which you must build 500 cars. And with that sporting evolution, you can introduce some new components in the engine, which is what we've done with this blue car. And we'll be starting production this week, and we'll be producing these cars at the rate of 12 a day. We have 3 months to build the 500 cars, which we will achieve. And as a result of that, as I said earlier, we'll have a much more competitive car at Bathurst this year.
So the paperwork complete and the production starts on the new Group A Commodore. But the man who's responsible for building the new race cars for all of the racing development is Larry Perkins. Larry, 2 brand new shells in the workshop here at the moment. How's the work progressing?
Oh, really good at the moment. The 2 shells you see there actually going to be our 2 cars for the long distance races and Bathurst. Our first car is when we had a bit of a learning exercise, and these are relatively simple. We know what we're doing, and we'll have this first one going before the first touring car race, and the second car will come along after.
Knowing what you know now about the 05 car, what sort of changes will you make to these cars?
Well, it'd be very minor, really. Just we've cleaned up our act on some of the procedures of assembly, just to make it quicker to make a car. We don't want to get involved in taking 3 months to build a new car, and so we've just cleaned the whole act up. Technically, there are only very subtle changes, and it's quite long, but it's nothing big.
Larry, apart from the mechanical changes, I've noticed that the roll cage in the car is different. Why is that?
Well, we're running a steel cage now, and last year we ran an alley cage. A couple of reasons. One, we're not chasing weight anymore, and the steel is also cheaper. We have a budget to operate in, and we're mounting it differently in the car to give greater strength from a rollover point of view, because we don't have to worry about that weight penalty.
So there we have some interesting details on the brand new Peter Brock Group A Commodore. The team, of course, pinning all of their hopes on this car for the latter part of season 1985. And for this weekend, Peter Brock hoping to repeat his Sandown performance.
The Peter Brock story, and our test pilot was Neil Crompton, barred from going back there again, I think. We've got the cars lined up for the Sports Sedan Final, presented by our TAA. Robert Doherty has pole position, gets set for the start. And off very smartly in 66 was Jolly, but grabbing another gear was Doherty here on the inside as they race up to Valvoline corner for the first time. And Doherty, you'll find, has gone through to take over the lead. Jolly dropping into second as they come out of Valvoline and now come down AGC's back straight towards the Castrol S's. One out of shape there, but he rejoins the field, and they're all running down to the right-hander.
Robert Doherty leading in the car that was previously owned and driven by Gary Rogers. I saw him looking a little wistfully as it went by earlier today in a preliminary event.
It's funny how times change, Gary. He bought that car around about 7 or 8 years ago for just $15,000 off a driver who used to run here at Rallycross at Calder by the name of Rex Monahan. Costs in motor racing have certainly changed since then. There's Grant Jarrett in the Nissan Bluebird Turbo, whom we saw last week at Adelaide, as Doherty goes across the line to end lap number 1 in car number 18.
Nothing quite like the thunder of a big V8, is there?
6 litres, 597 brake horsepower. The big Chev, 510 foot-pounds of torque. There's Charles Milner in third place, Jacobson in fourth, Graham Lusty there in the Group C-powered Commodore in fifth.
18 coming down to the Castrol S's. Robin Doherty in the Tirana, much modified Tirana, on the run to Glowweave now. Jolly still back in second place, and in fact, the leader has probably opened a 10 or 20 metre gap on Jolly as they come out and back across the strike in this, our TAA Sports Sedan Final.
The laps are going to unfold in this pretty quick. They're really flying.
Bob Jolly, car number 66 in second position from Melbourne. Another of the ex-karting fraternity. Had this car for around about 3 years now. This one powered by a 5-litre Chev, and he has a 6-litre Chevy on the way, which he claims to have around about 610 odd horsepower being developed by it. And Charles Milner there in third place in car number 42. Engineer from Phillip Island down in southeastern Victoria. This little car's a pretty unbelievable combination as well. It's a 5-litre Chev, about 500 brake horsepower, next to no weight, and a real handful, as you can well see.
Guaranteed to stand the hair up on your back. And that's probably what it's doing for Charles Milner when they get down to the S's.
Top 3 really have spaced the rest of the field in this sports sedan event. Doherty leads Jolly, Milner in third. That's the race leader, car 18. Top qualifier in 44.81.
I don't think Gary Rogers really wanted to sell this car. It was up for sale for a while. He had second thoughts about it. Had an extra start or two in it, then finally gave way. Doherty's picked up the car and the drive, obviously, and would be enjoying himself. Jolly finds himself under a little more pressure from Milner as they come down to the Castrol S's again.
In fact, I asked Gary Rogers today when he was going to get back in something that had a bit of grunt, and he just rolled his eyes back, and all I saw were dollar signs.
Doesn't cost you any money to go motor race. Oh, one off down in the bottom. However, as they come through Glowweave, this great scrap continues for the lead. It might have been Milner,
yes,
actually,
it was
that went
Milner.
off.
Yeah, The third place getter has disappeared off the track, Milner, and is no longer the third place getter, in fact. And here's somebody else. That's Milner, is it? 42 over there in the corner? No, that's somebody else.
42's got a big problem.
It's car 83, Warren Anderson, who went off there, but we've certainly lost our third place holder, Charles Milner. He disappeared off the circuit, up the back, we believe, at the end of the back straight. So this is the battle for first and second. Jacobson in the Escort has gone through into third. You may have seen him there in the background. But these two here absolutely out of hammer and tong. And consider that the lead car has around about 100 brake horsepower extra. I think Bob Jolly's doing a pretty good job.
Jolly is doing a fantastic job when you look at the qualifying times. 44.81 for Doherty and 46.14 for Jolly, and yet they're nose and tail after 5 laps.
Jolly's car, when you look underneath the fiberglass of what seems to be a Commodore, is about, well, it's about as far removed as you can ever get from a Commodore. It may bear some sort of silhouette resemblance, but that's it. When you lift the panels away, it's what you'd basically have to call, I guess, an old Formula 5000 car. The rear end of the car is a transaxle with a Hewland gearbox, much like you would have in the old Formula 5000 cars. And it's a real mean piece of works.
Michael Jacobson in car 28 and Escort holds down third position on the track at the present time, and car 45, Graham Lusty in a Commodore in fourth place.
Actually, Lusty, interesting in that he's running his Group A car with the Group C motor purely to do some sorting out in the car, and it's going extremely well.
Peter Brock had a horrified look on his face in Friday in practice when sports sedans and Group A cars were out on the circuit at once, and Lusty pulled out and passed Brock up the back straight, and he wondered what on earth he had under the bonnet. Bob Jolly, car number 66 in second position, going around car number 8 there in the Tirana, Ray Chalice. And look at the traffic that the leaders have to negotiate at the end of the back straight. Doherty from Jolly. You may see in the background a long way back is Jacobson in the Escort. 15-inch diameter wheels with a 12-inch wide tyre on the back of this Tirana. Enormous amounts of rubber.
Last lap board is about to go out for both Robin Doherty and Bob Jolly.
They're coming up on some slower cars too. This will be an interesting right-hander at Valvoline. The big throaty V8 Tirana coming up with Robin Doherty darting down the inside to take the pressure off him.
1 lap to go, and it's all going to be heart in the mouth as they get through the slower traffic here.
See what, Jolly didn't miss one on the way through either. Jolly lost out badly in that. But here's Doherty. Jolly now pulls back into second after getting caught up with some of those slower cars. They were trying to stay out of the road, but the rate that these two front runners caught them at was mind-boggling. So Doherty coming down towards Glowweave Corner for the final time in the Tirana. Bob Jolly in the Commodore. What appears to be a Commodore coming out of Glowweave Corner, and the starter has the checkered flag ready and across the strike. And it'll be Doherty, the winner from Jolly, and car number 28, Michael Jacobson, finishing back there in third.
A long way back, in fact, and it's 18, Robin Doherty in the Tirana. First, car 66, Bob Jolly second in the Commodore, and car 28, Michael Jacobson in the Escort is third.
Number this weekend for motorsport. On Friday night, of course, Sevens crew won a Logie for their coverage of motorsport. And, of course, yesterday here at Calder International Raceway, in the dying moments of practice, Peter Brock climbs into a 7 and wins pole position. It's the old Victorian trick.
It is. I've got these local timekeepers charmed, yeah.
A tremendous effort in the fact that the car was still a body shell only a week ago.
Yes, as we raced at Adelaide Raceway, they're still painting the body shell. And as we got back to work on Monday morning, they were actually piecing it together like a giant Meccano set. It was amazing, actually. It got out here on time on Friday, and straight off the trailer, it was quick.
How expensive is this qualifying business?
Well, my accountant... well, let's put it this way. For the Australian economy, we're doing the right thing. We're spreading that money around. Well, new tyres give you one quick lap. And regardless of what compound they are, virtually every tyre, that's the characteristics. So it's a matter of bolting on new tyres until you get the desired effect. As it transpired, we had 2 new sets we'd tried, but we didn't wreck any of them, and hopefully we can use those tyres in a race, say, later on at Surface Paradise or something like that.
Having achieved pole position, that puts you on the front row with that man that's been hard to catch all season, Jim Richards. Will Keilor be a little different to Adelaide?
My feelings are that Jim is still the man to beat. I mean, it's all right doing one very quick lap, but it's extremely close. Looking at the times we were doing earlier in the week, 49.0, 48.9, 49.1, we were both doing those times on, you know, a car that was a little bit worn out, tyres that were worn out from the weekends before his racing. So it seems as if the cars are about identical, and I think we've got a hell of a race in our hands. And also Dick Johnson there. I mean, his car's flying this weekend, and the Volvo.
You've got two cars in the race. What's the game plan?
Get in front and to consolidate the lead, of course. But, well, I don't know. It's John's first run since Bathurst last year, so he's short of a gallop, and he's probably in about, I don't know, 8th or something like that in the grid. So he's behind the Alphas and what have you. Now, the way those Alphas are going this weekend, I don't know. If John can pass one or both of those terrible twins, well, he's doing pretty well. No, I don't think I can expect to have much help from John this weekend. I think all I can do is try and open all the doors, you know, make the car as wide as possible, and just say, get by if you can.
We'll follow your progress. Peter Brock.
Yeah.
He's got pole position for today's round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Of course, the man he has to beat is the man who was invincible in the opening round, and that was at Winton in February. BMW power struck from the opening round of the championship at Winton in Victoria. Jim Richards won pole position and then cleared out in the 62 car. Dick Johnson gave chase in the green Mustang, as did Alan Jones and Colin Bond, but Bond's challenge lasted but a few laps until he threw a smokescreen around the field and Wilmington's Jaguar was on the skids. Johnson's Mustang overheated and retreated to the pits, while Jones had to take on fresh rubber as Crichton moved to second and Kevin Bartlett snared third place in the Starion. BMWs, though, were too strong with a 1-2 at the opener. Round 2 at Sandown, and Peter Brock debuted the new Mobile Commodore, which he put on pole position and then stormed away untroubled in the 100-kilometre sprint. Bond and Crichton touched not long after the start, while Johnson bunkered the Mustang to take any pressure off Peter Perfect. Richards closed but got the BMW out of shape when ready to pounce, and Brock stretched it out to lead the field to the flag. Richards grabbed second with Johnson next in the green machine. Round 3, and it was time for Robbie Francevic to strike in the Turbo Volvo. The popular Kiwi claimed pole position and then bolted away in the Silver Streak. Johnson gave chase but couldn't haul in the New Zealander, who was revelling in the conditions. Crichton did a power of overtaking to make it to third, but troubles prevented a better showing from Richards and the Jones boy. The touring car title went west to Perth for the 4th round at Wanneroo, with the front row shared by Richards and Brock. Johnson knocked the engine kill switch off in the first corner, only to see the field pass by as he dropped to last. However, he came back through the traffic to finally pass Francevic for 3rd place. The big dice involved Crichton, the local Tim Slako in the Rover, Francevic and Alan Jones, who was wowing the fans with some of the most aggressive driving seen at the track this year. At the finish, it was Jim Richards by less than 5 seconds over Brock, and Johnson a deserving 3rd. Round 5 of the championship was held at Adelaide International Raceway. Jim Richards had pole, but in the scramble to the first corner, it was teammate Neville Crichton who split the field to lead Brock's Commodore and Dick Johnson's Mustang. The action was thick and fast at the head of the pack. Richards fought his way past Johnson and then took off after Brock. Peter Perfect finally passed Neville Crichton, and stage 2 of the race was really on. Brocky was giving the fans quite a show as he repeatedly turned back the challenges of the black BMW duo. Johnson joined the draft to make it a 4-way run for the clean air, while Francevic's Volvo went to the infield. Richards made his move, taking Brock on the run to the S's and then immediately opening a gap on the 05 Commodore. Alan Jones dashed to the pits to end any chance of a top 5 finish, and in the closing stages, Brock narrowed the gap on the BMW. At the finish, it was Richards over Brock and Johnson with Neville Crichton 4th. Gentleman Jim continues to top the points table on 113. Crichton's next on 92, Peter Brock 88, Dick Johnson 83, Alan Jones 74 and Kevin Bartlett 63. We now await the Keilor charge in round 6 here this afternoon.
The warm-up lap for the Australian Touring Car Championship round 6 at Keilor International Raceway, the Eurobox Trophy, and this is the way the grid shapes up. Car 7, Peter Brock, in the mobile dealer team. Commodore is on pole position, and on the front row of the grid with him, the series leader in 62, the BMW, Jim Richards. On the second row, car 21, Robbie Francevic in the Volvo, and in car 17, Dick Johnson driving a Ford Mustang. On the third row, car 2, Steve Masterton in a Commodore, and 27, Alan Jones in an Alpha. Then we've got car 31, Neville Crichton, Jim Richards' teammate in another BMW, and car 26, the second of the Alphas, Colin Bond. Then car 66, Kevin Bartlett in a Starion, and car 3, Kent Bagent driving a BMW. John Harvey is in 05 behind them. Right, the top 12, and the field tails out to total 23. John Harvey, I mentioned, driving the 05 Commodore today. Take note of that. And Peter Brock on pole position is driving car number 7, the new dealer team car.
Also in the field this afternoon, car number 20, Jim Keogh in the Commodore, Don Smith in the Ford Mustang, Brian Sampson in the Starion, Ken Matthews in the Commodore, Johnny Smith in the Toyota Corolla, Drew Price in the Toyota Sprinter, Laurie Hazelton in the Ford Capri, Bob Holden in the Toyota Sprinter, Ken Harrison in the Escort, Mike Minear in the Volvo, and Laurie Nelson tailing out in the Ford Mustang. So a very hot field, a very competitive field, not much in the way of time over the first 6 or 8 cars in the field, only 7/10 of a second. I think we're set for a marvellous round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Round 6 here today at Calder International Raceway, the Eurovox Trophy. And the start in this race is going to be critical for Jim Richards. As Gary mentioned earlier today in his scene setter, some controversy over the times late in practice yesterday. Peter Brock snuck up on the BMW team and posted a quickie. They doubted his time, but the scorers said enough. He set the time and he'll start off pole. And Jim Richards, of course, is the man who has been leading the series since it started. Some facts on the quiet man, Jimmy Richards. 37 years of age, from Victoria, and the BMW 635. First at Winton, second Sandown, fifth Simmons Plains, that was his worst. Wanneroo first, Adelaide first, currently the leader on 113 points. The man to beat here today, Jim Richards.
A lot of firsts in there, aren't there?
You're not kidding. Consistency brings its own rewards. For Jimmy Richards, he's been Mr. Consistency in the touring car title in the JPS BMW.
Dick Johnson also has been consistent, but he's looking for a little more than consistency. He's not content to be consistent, Dick. He wants to be a winner.
I think Dick's anything but happy with the homologations to come on the Mustang to give him a little more horsepower, but he can't take full advantage of that until, of course, August the 1st.
What about Masterton? Really had the boot in qualifying yesterday, didn't he?
Yes, very much so. Steve Masterton in the Masterton Homes 2 WS Commodore. Very, very quick indeed. Pole showing in the car's first appearance at Amaroo back at Easter.
They seem to grid the cars a lot closer together here at Calder than on any other circuit. And
not wrong.
For anybody that is not drawn right on the front row, you're in trouble. I mean, the car that's drawn in position 3 is locked out. Dick Johnson in this case.
Have a look for the start. Viewers at home, watch Francevic get off the line in 21. He'll split if he gets away quickly. Richards and Peter Brock, and look for Alan Jones.
What that does, in fact, is to plant Johnson 3 wide.
Exactly. Stand by. Round 6 of the Eurovox Australian Touring Car Championship from Keilor. Racing, Brocky, a beautiful start. Johnson grabs a gear. Francevic crowds Masterton on the inside, but can't get through. He's caught down there and keeping Masterton on the grass as they range up. Johnson will drop into second. Masterton's caught a little sideways. Francevic is up to 4th place. And Masterton will now come out running in 3rd as they come down the back straight away. Jim Richards has the job ahead of him. Robbie Francevic tearing down on the inside of Masterton. Masterton's on the tail of Johnson. And Peter Perfect in the number 7 will lead in the Castrol S's for the first time. Just look at the traffic congestion.
Jim Richards got shuffled back into 5th spot going into the first corner. He still occupies that position just ahead of Alan Jones in the first of the Alphas, and then Richards' teammate Neville Crichton in the second BMW.
Coming up for one lap completed, 59 thrill pack laps to come, and the race leader is Peter Brock. Dick Johnson, wow, the job, up for second, and Robbie Francevic has got the turbo wound up, and here he comes. Up on the outside, Peter Brock has lost an engine. No, it was a brake lock. Peter Brock goes into the corner high, through his line out, but you'll find that Dick Johnson still holds second. Robbie Francevic is third, has taken Masterton.
Masterton under pressure too from Jim Richards, desperate to go quicker.
Richards draws up on the inside of Masterton, coming down to the Castrol S's, but Francevic still sitting in there behind Dick Johnson. Boy, what a race we've got going, and going around the outside, as you'll notice, coming down to Glowleaf, is Alan Jones, who is absolutely all over Jim Richards. Out of the corner. There they are, line astern. Jones tucked in on for the draft up the front straight. The 2 laps completed in 58. And Melbourne's Peter Brock and the Mobile number 7 Commodore leads Robbie Francevic around the outside of Johnson. Johnson goes back into third. And the great scrap continues with Jimmy Richards and Steve Masterton. Well, Francevic signalling. He has got the turbo boost about right here for the straights at Calder. A very, very compact field. Just look at the traffic congestion, and we're still 3 laps into the race.
Richards has got by Masterton coming down to the Castrol S's and moves up into 4th place, so it's Brock leading. Francevic second, Johnson third, then Richards, then Masterton, Jones, Crichton, and 0-5 with John Harvey at the wheel has come up from 11th position on the grid to 7th.
Great driving from Johnny Harvey. Here they come through Glow with Crichton is there. Harvey is the next one back behind him, and Kevin Bartlett the next one in the Starion. Bajan back just a little as they go across the start-finishing line. Brock the leader.
Oh, it's been a frantic 3 laps. Francevic in 2nd spot. Dick Johnson third. Dick, after what we were saying about the starting grid, actually made the best possible start that he could from where he was.
To think that you've got to spend that much money to buy all those gumball tyres to get pole position, they get shuffled out and run to the first corner. Dick Johnson carrying race cam. No way in the world we're going to disturb Dick Johnson at the moment. He's trying to get back past the turbo Volvo, and boy, has he got a guy riding on the back of his bumper in Jim Richards, 62, and Richards doesn't want to give Brock that much of a start. Well, he hasn't got much of a start, Brock. He's got probably 3 car lengths over Robbie Francevic.
Here comes Richards.
Richards now makes his move. He'll pass Johnson. Got a little more torque down the straights. Here they come into the corner. We'll wait for the clash here as Richards takes Dick Johnson. That moves him up to 3rd. Johnson goes back to 4th, and Steve Masterton is 5th as they come down AGC straight.
Well, Masterton started like a bullet, but they've been able to reel him in. Dropping back into 4th place. This is the battle now as Richards claws his way back through the field in pursuit of Peter Brock. Francevic is the man that Richards has to reel in next. This should provide quite a battle. Brock has a little safety margin up his sleeve at the moment as they cross the start-finish line again. Francevic, the Kiwi who came here at the start of the season, determined to make a big impact on touring car racing in Australia, and boy, is he living up to the promise.
You're not wrong there, Gary. Doing a great job. Robbie Francevic and the turbo Volvo. A circuit that he didn't really believe that would suit the Volvo. They had some problems rebuilding, a head gasket problem on Friday. Crew have been working 24 hours straight, and at the moment Brock is just edging away slightly from Robbie Francevic. But right behind Robbie Francevic is, of course, Jim Richards in the 62 JPS BMW. Getting off the course just a little, coming off the turn at Glowweave.
6 laps completed. Brock leads. Francevic second. Then Richards, Johnson, Masterton, Alan Jones. Masterton's pulling off.
The car slowing.
Down the main straight, the car's slowing badly. So that's the end of Steve's chances for the day. Maybe he did a little more damage than he thought in that crunch into the wall yesterday.
The AGC back straight shows the Mobile dealer team car number 7 leading the race. Right behind him is Robbie Francevic in 21, just picked him up from nowhere. Now, whether or not Francevic has turned up the wick, but he's got right on the tail now of Peter Brock. Doesn't believe the car is the best handling one for this course, but on a straight line run to the turns, Francevic's Volvo has to be seen to be believed, and he is sizing him up now. There's Masterton pulling off, and Francevic on the outside of Peter Brock races him for the lead in round 6 of the Touring Car Championship from Keilor. He couldn't pull it as they went to Valvoline.
Bravery under brakes saves it for Peter Brock.
They move on to the AGC back straight. Brock knows he's got a challenger and a hot one here with Francevic in car number 21. Richard sitting up there waiting to see how all the the games are going to pan out here. They are very, very close. Brock leads them down towards Glowweave. Into the right-hander now. Skips away a little bit here under brakes, but Francevic should be able to pull him back on this long straight at Calder. Dick Johnson has moved up onto the draft as well. So Peter Brock has a very businesslike Robbie Francevic trying to size him up. Breaking the draft, Francevic once again pulls this move on the outside. Trying to get himself set for a run back under Brock as they come off this corner.
I don't think he's got the handling to get under Brock out of this corner. That's the problem.
He's closer now, though, as they come, and Johnson moves up behind them. How much closer is Johnson that time? Brock using all of the racetrack here, going to show Rob a little new line or two, oh yes, around Keilor International Raceway. Jimmy Richards must realise now that Brock is holding up the show just a little, because they've all managed to close up behind Brock.
Nose to tail, the top four. Brock, Francevic, Richards and Johnson. Then a slight gap to the next pair, Alan Jones and Neville Crichton.
They'll be coming up on the slower cars. They could hold the key to who takes the lead. Francevic this time. Zappo down the outside. Brock says no, no, no. Gets back onto the binders and races him in. Under brakes, locks up the brake doing it. Oh, and spins it. And almost takes out. No, he comes back across the track, and they all manage to miss him. And how often do you see Peter Brock have a lose? Not that often at all. Now, one pretty satisfied Kiwi has found himself up in front and leading the Australian Touring Car Championship Round 6. Robbie Francevic, he'd be feeling super.
He applied immense pressure there on Brock for lap after lap. About 4 times he had to go at him at the bottom of the main straight. Got the nose in front. Brock really had to do it brave under brakes, and he just did it a little too hard. Take a look at it from race cam with Dick Johnson.
Okay, Brock coming into the turn. He's got it around a little slower, is losing it completely there. Dick at this stage thinking, I'll follow Jim. He goes through, and that was it. Exit Peter Brock, and the race continues with Robbie Francevic coming up behind the slower cars. Jim Richards starting to loom now as the potential man to watch in this field.
Brock will be furious, but I'll bet in one respect he's happy he didn't bend a brand new car.
You're right there.
Brock, in fact, is coming into the pits.
We'll get that for you shortly, but in the meantime, we'll watch this great scrap between two drivers who are attacking this round here at Keilor with everything today. Robbie Francevic, who lives, of course, in New Zealand and is over here to campaign this turbo Volvo for the Touring Car Championship, and an expatriate Kiwi who leads it in Jimmy Richards. Steve Masterton's car, whatever the problem was, they've been able to rectify it. It is back in the race.
Yes, he lost a couple of laps in the pits, though, so he's really out there now to get the car sorted out for the future rounds of the Touring Car Championship and the Endurance Championship to come. Francevic continues to lead under pressure from Jim Richards and Dick Johnson. Alan Jones tucked in behind them in 4th place in the little Alpha, doing a mighty job.
Well, a very quick pit stop for Brock, and he goes back out after losing probably a lap and a half. And here's where the action is in the Touring Car Championship. The Eurovox radios around here today. Oh, and a little tap from Jim just to get Robbie sorted out through Glowweave corner, and a run down the straightaway again. Johnson still in the draft, running in 3rd spot, and it would appear that Neville Crichton
has
back
got
behind
past,
them.
yes, he's got past Alan Jones.
And hasn't that Volvo got some straight line speed? Doesn't handle all that well, but they're hopeful of rectifying that. In fact, Mark Petch was telling me only earlier today they've got the engine just about right, and they're allowing Robbie to do most of the development on the chassis. They feel that he really has to live with the way the car is set.
He's the man that drives it.
And a man close to us, Derek Heiler, has been helping with it as well, giving him some advice. Must have paid off for him, because he's up front leading.
Well, handling was going to be his worry around this circuit, but he seems to have got it sorted out pretty well. And with the new engine plugged in, they've really got the power they needed. And this car is fiercely competitive. It's a long time since Peter Brock's been forced into error.
Well, Brock is back in the race, but here's the turbo Volvo. The Mark Petch entry, number 21, Robbie Francevic, the race leader in round 6, the Eurovox Trophy here at Keilor. The man who is getting closer to him all the time is Jimmy Richards as they come down the back straight, the AGC straight, heading down to the Castrol S's. And Dick Johnson still holding a very, very comfortable third. Clear of Neville Crichton, Alan Jones, the next one. And then back behind them, John Harvey, I believe, just ahead of Kevin Bartlett and Colin Bond.
You've called them exactly the way they are, Mike. Exactly, and that's with coming up 14 laps gone out of 60 in round 6 of the Touring Car Championship for the Eurovox Trophy here at Calder International. What a happy place this has turned out to be so far for Robbie Francevic.
62, Richards. You've got your money on Richards. It's still maybe reasonably safe. He's just so tidy and so fast. With the problems that the Francevic Mark Petch crew have had over the past few days, it'll be a miracle, really, if they have a trouble-free run through this. I hope I'm not putting the bookers on it because they certainly don't deserve that. They're coming up on Mike Minear, strong-arm kid in the Volvo. And he, of course, is doing well in the STP Rookie Awards. STP Oil Treatment have put up $30,000 in Rookie Awards for the Touring Car Championship.
Jim Keogh, I think, leads the series the award at the moment on points. But as you said, Mike Minear also scoring well, and it's a good encouragement to those guys.
Great to see Jim Keogh, grey-haired, going to be the oldest rookie in town.
Tim Slako from West Australia, we've seen in a couple of rounds also, has scored well on points for that STP Rookie Award.
Coming down the AGC back straight, Robbie Francevic, Jimmy Richards right in behind them, Dick Johnson getting closer all the time. Then haunting them in the background is Neville Crichton.
15 laps gone in round 6 of the Touring Car Championship, and car 21 leads. Robbie Francevic in the Volvo. In second place, car 62, the BMW, Jim Richards. Third place, 17, Dick Johnson in the Mustang.
For a day of breathtaking motor racing, come to Oran Park next Sunday. The track's been rebuilt and lap records will tumble. Bap Romano faces Chris Clearahan in the Australian Sports Car Championship. You'll see 18 races, exciting sports sedans, and the hard-fought Goodyear Laser Series. There's picnic areas, rides for the kids, and you can take a lap with touring car ace Steve Masterton. If you're not at Oran Park on Sunday, you're going nowhere fast.
And welcome back. Robbie Francevic continues to lead the Touring Car Championship, but look who has just dropped in under Jim Richards for second. It's Queensland's Dick Johnson. And Robbie Francevic and Richards have been having one heck of a game here. They've been tapping and tapping. Johnson just caught Richards in the old trotting parlance, one out and one back, and just closed the gap, snuck through on the inside, which was something I don't think Richards appreciated. And Robbie Francevic manages to get away down the straight. Johnson still hanging in there, and Jim has now got to come back from third rather than from second.
There's a pretty good gap back to the next couple, including Crichton and Alan Jones, Mike, and I wonder whether Richards mightn't be content just to back off a little, because the pace has been pretty furious.
Well, it certainly has. The Volvo still being able to run away from his BMW down the straight. This is the awful part of the course for the BMW.
One thing that Jim Richards has proved, though, he's got the tyres to run the distance, even around Calder, which is hard on tyres.
Yes. Coming down into Low Weave Corner. Just take a look at this. This was a lap before we came back. Jim Richards putting a little tap into the side of Robbie Francevic.
But Francevic came out of it better.
And watch this, as Francevic gets out of it better and Johnson finds the opening down on the inside, was to come back and then take over second place. That's how it happened. Francevic in car number 21, the Mark Petch Volvo, continues to lead out of Valvoline Corner. Dick Johnson of Queensland in second. We'll be going to race cam with Dick a little later. And Jimmy Richards sitting back behind Johnson in car number 62.
The black BMWs, in fact, are running third and fourth on the track. Jim Richards and Neville Crichton, Alan Jones holding down fifth place. And car 05 rather, is in sixth spot. And, of course, that's John Harvey.
Low Weave Corner again. Robbie Francevic in the Volvo comes out of the bend. Well, far back behind him is Dick Johnson and, of course, Jim Richards. And then you can start to see pulling them in Neville Crichton and the other BMW and Alan Jones in the Network Alpha number 27.
Try as he might, Crichton hasn't been able to get too far away from Jones either.
No.
Slower traffic.
There's Bob. Holden, staying well to the inside of the course there, giving them all racing room. Good old Bob. They come down the AGC back straight. I thought Richards might have been able to pick up Johnson a little quicker than this, but he has now, and he's putting wheels up on the curb. So I'd say Jim wants to get on with this. He really can't afford to give Francevic a 100-metre break. He caught him up before. There was a touch. Then he lost a spot as a regard in respect of position he was holding. And as you can see, Francevic is now starting to just edge away slightly from Dick Johnson. And I would say that's close enough to probably 50 metres.
Well, Francevic's quite happy to see Johnson and Richards in the rearview mirror playing cutthroat, plays right into his hands, and because he gets out of the corners before them and plants his foot in the turbo Volvo, and it's on the long straights down the front and up the back that he makes up all the ground here and is drawn away. There's Keogh, the man who leads the Encouragement Award.
Once again, they come down to the Castrol S's. Francevic caught up behind a slower car momentarily. 74. Now Johnson goes the outside route. Richards will come in here and try and take him as well. Into Glowweave corner. Tyres are hanging on. And our man in the pits who's been studying this fascinating round of the Touring Car Championship is Neil Crompton.
Thank you, Mike. Fascinating it is indeed. The news from the pits with Peter Brock's problem was that he didn't make a driver error, in fact. He blew a left rear tyre, which in fact spun the car, as you could well see. The other news down here from the Commodore camp is, of course, Steve Masterton's problems. You may have seen some of the blue smoke haze coming out from the back of the car. That was a gearbox problem, which ultimately put him out of the race, but he had a double header because he also had a flat rear left tyre. So that's what's happening down here at the moment. I can see Jim Richards getting stuck into the back of Johnson. We'll take it back to central commentary.
Thank you very much, Neil Crompton. And Dick Johnson and Jim Richards continue their great battle for second place behind New Zealand's Robbie Francevic. Into Glowweave corner again. Francevic still that 50-metre split over Johnson's Mustang, and of course the always reliable JPS BMW 62 of Jim Richards.
Top three have opened up a fair break now on Neville Crichton in 31 in fourth place, and Alan Jones still tagged right onto the end of the leading division. And then 05, John Harvey. They're the top six. But it's about a half lap of the circuit, I'd say, between first and seventh, first and eighth at the present time.
Getting down to Glowweave corner. And I suppose from here, we may as well take a look of how Dick Johnson...
Closing up again.
Closing up just a little bit on Robbie Francevic. Francevic coming along, accepting his pit signal.
Now this is where Francevic gets away just a little bit. Here we go through this corner. That's the one where Brock had the tyre go on him and spun out. Francevic, you can see the Volvo dance across the road right to the outside and up the bank straight. Again, tends to get just a little bit away from Johnson. On go the brakes for Francevic. Johnson closes up under brakes. Here they go into the Castrol S's, and handling is a plus here for Johnson. Oh, they really do have to throw these big cars around to get them through these corners. Onto Glowweave again. A very tough right-hander right to the outside and straighten up for the long run down the main straight at Keilor. And again, you can see the advantage of the turbo Volvo on the straights.
That's first, Rob Francevic. Second, Johnson. Third, of course, is Jim Richards. Man stepping back into the driver's seat today is, of course, John Harvey. The car that has been campaigned by Peter Brock, that's the 05 Commodore. Peter Brock electing to drive the 7 car after it suited him just a little better, and the car was a little quicker in practice.
What was it you were saying when you spoke to him earlier about Lucky 7?
Well, yeah, you probably have something to say about that later, but with a deflating tyre, that's not really something you can blame on Peter Brock. But John Harvey, good to be back in racing in the 05 car, and he'll probably go back to the 7 car, I would think, for the next round of the Touring Car Championship. Be held at Surface Paradise in about a fortnight's time. So John Harvey continues along in the field.
He's been a while out of the saddle, Harves. We haven't sighted him since the end of last year.
running 6th at the moment on the road, John Harvey.
But as you saw in Neil Crompton's report, it's taken the dealer team a little time to get their second car up and running, but it now is, and it's good to have Harves back on the track. The leader is Robbie Francevic from New Zealand in car number 21, the turbocharged Volvo. There it is, second place, still being held down by 17 Dick Johnson, and Jim Richards in 62 is third. Remaining in the Eurobox Trophy, round 6 of the Australian Touring Car Championship, as Dick Johnson continues to pursue the turbocharged Volvo of Robbie Francevic, the race leader. And, gee, Johnson is getting close. In fact, a little more than close, I think.
It appear maybe, certainly Francevic is climbing everything he can get a back wheel over, then some, and might be having some tyre problems. Because at this particular point of the racetrack, the long straight, you'll notice the Volvo just clears right out. But look how Dick will close it up under brakes.
And look out Dick, because right behind him is Jim Richards.
Yes, it won't be long before Richards is back to put the pressure on them again. Francevic used a wide entrance there, comes out, picks up the inside wheel as they come down the back straight with still Dick Johnson tagging him, and Jim Richards not that far back, and Johnson will have to cover his tracks now because Richards will come up on the inside of him, and he's just managed to fend him off there as they come up behind one of the slower cars. All over the ripple step that time is Robbie Francevic. He's trying desperately to hang on and post a win here in the 6th round of the Touring Car Championship. Johnson using the low line out of the corner, and Jim Richards sitting right on the tail of Dick Johnson's Mustang as they come up the straight again. Wait to see whether or not Richards can pull out of the draft and take an inside shot at Johnson.
Just about nose to tail, the top 3, Francevic, Johnson and Richards. Back to Valvoline corner again. Oh, by geez, really punishing that Volvo, Francevic. Desperation measures to stall off the other two.
And there's not much really Dick Johnson can do about it because the Volvo's got that much squirt on the straight. He's all over the car, and the part of the racetrack where the better handling, and he says, come on, Rob, get on with it. Look at Richards here, look at Richards down the outside. And I think the signal has gone out to Robbie Francevic to either get on with it, but Dick has gone for the outside lick. He's not going to get anything there.
Jim might have given it up to Richards.
May have well. He's dropped, yes, he has. As they come across the line, you'll notice Richards now will come up into second. A pass there from Jim Richards moves him to second behind Robbie Francevic. Francevic has been off the pace a little. He's got some rubber off the back bumper. As you can see, starting to shred, and I think it won't be long before Jim Richards gets on even terms down here with the slower cars and Robbie Francevic.
Pretty low percentage try, what don't you reckon, from Dick to go to the outside there? It's cost him a place.
Well, I think he was thrown a little out of momentum that time by the time touching Francevic. Tell you what, there's not too many have missed the back of Robbie's Volvo today.
I think he's getting a bit of a touch up there from Richards as well. Johnson goes the outside again.
That won't work. Come back onto the straight. They're still, notice the leaders are still well clear of Neville Crichton and Alan Jones, and now Francevic has Jim Richards closing up to him at this corner. Well, if he can keep that Volvo turned up, and here's the go down the inside, says Jim. He went wide that time, and Jimmy Richards goes through to take over the lead, and Johnson up very quickly on the inside, is trying to fight back, but Francevic won't give way. Francevic continues on the outside. Johnson will have the line for the turn. Jimmy Richards, car number 62, has done it from 4th place, comes back to now lead the Australian Touring Car Championship. Dick Johnson in 2nd place, and Robbie Francevic is 3rd. What a race.
Had to happen. The tyres just wouldn't hold the road for Francevic after the punishing that they've taken for the first 40 laps of this race. He couldn't hold the line through the corner. Not only did Richards get through to take the lead, but Johnson is through for 2nd. Oh, boy. Breathless stuff. So, the series leader, the man that's won 3 out of 5 so far, assumes command once more. It's a little battle-scarred, that Volvo, isn't it?
Yes, you're right there. Number 10, they're coming up on now. And, of course, is John Smith in the Toyota Corolla. But Richards comes down through the Castrol S's. Impeccable drive from Richards. Gee, what a pressure drive from him. He was all over Robbie Francevic, got tangled up behind him. out of shape. Dick Johnson nabbed second back off him, but he's been able to come back again with Robbie Francevic's car dropping clearly off the pace as Richards and Dick Johnson now have opened up 100 metres.
Spearing down the main straightaway past the grandstand, closing very rapidly on car 10, the Corolla of John Smith, that made its first appearance in the small car category in Adelaide last week. Still in the process of sorting it out, but it's going to be a good little race car once they get it up and running in its class. Side by side with Jim Richards. And Richards and Johnson both go through, as you'd expect, with the horsepower that they've got under the bonnet. Coming round through Glowweave this time and onto the main straight again, Mike. I think we might try and chance a quick word with Dick Johnson.
Yes, we'll be coming through to race cam with Dick now as he comes on to the start-finishing straight. Dick Johnson, you've been a busy man out there. This is quite a race.
Yeah, you're not wrong, mate. I'm going to tell you what, my mouth's as dry as a wooden bloody spoon.
Well, you provided us with a sensational round of the Touring Car Championship. You seemed a little frustrated with Robbie Francevic. Seemed to be
oh, goddamn, mate, it's like having a flock of flats in front of you.
Well, it
handles like a wet sponge.
Well,
especially when his tyres went off. God.
I think Robbie will agree the thing is not the best handling car, but by goodness me, it's got some poke in a straight line.
Mate, she's got more mumbo than
Jumbo.
Than Sammy Davis Jr., I tell you.
Well, what about this fella in front of you? By goodness me, you're quick through this section of the track.
Yeah, I'll just keep on working on him and see if I can wear him out. I tell you what, Mick Carl's looked at how she's been at the Speedway for a week. I think I've been hit. I tell you, I've had more hits than Elvis.
I tell you what, Robbie Francevic looked like he survived a demolition derby here today.
You're not wrong, there was bits hanging off everywhere.
Dick, you had a pretty good look at Peter Brock when he spun out there at the bottom.
Yeah, well, it's not often you see that, is it? Here's a fellow competitor for you. Have a look at this, will you? Running his own race, 4 laps down.
Yeah, some make it easy for you and some don't.
Yeah.
Well, second at the moment, that's not too bad. I mean, and you're really in touch. Jim's not getting away from you.
All right, we'll see if we can give him a bit of mumbo here.
All right, we'll let you get back to it.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Dick. Let's go down now to Neil Crompton in the pits.
Thank you, Mike. Well, the action down here at the moment certainly is pretty hot and spectacular. I don't know whether you noticed before, but as the 3 leaders came through the S's, they all bunched up and, in fact, all ran into one another. With me at the moment is Frank Gardner. Poor old Jim was in amongst the sandwich there, getting beaten in from all sides.
Yeah, I think the old, what would you say, the Volvo, the house brick with brakes on it is a bit of a problem. It goes in a straight line and it stops well, but it's just at the moment not going around corners. And I think they've all swapped paint. And at the moment, we're interested to see whether Neville Crichton can get with the Volvo.
There seems to be a pattern emerging at the start of these events. Jim's not getting away from the line very well at all.
No, all the cars overseas are basically geared for rolling starts. They're not designed for a standing start. It's an engineering side that we're going to have to look at very carefully because it could cost us a race.
What kind of times are they lapping in at the moment?
They're very good. They're in the high 8s, and it's very competitive, which is what Group A is all about. Different mates, different things, but always competitive.
That's very close to qualifying time. I should think that's going to be pretty hard on the cars.
Yes, I would say now that people are looking at some tatty rubber, I think our Pirellis are holding up all right. Neville's on Pirellis and the Volvo's on Dunlops. So it's a bit of an interesting tyre battle, I think, at this stage.
Thanks, Frank. Now back to you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you very much, Neil. And the thoughts there, of course, of Frank Gardner. Must have been a worried man there for a while. But here's the scrap. It continues. We can see the Volvo, and here's Neville Crichton pulling out to have a shot at him, and Alan Jones tucked in behind the pair of them. Deary me, I tell you, the Volvo is a handful down through the S's. I tell you, they can all poke their fun about it being a block of flats. But in a straight line, this car has got just so much potential.
It has injected an awful lot of life into the Australian Touring Car Championship.
Yes, you're not wrong there. So Robbie Francevic comes out, Neville Crichton playing NASCAR draft with him, and Alan Jones trying to get up right behind Crichton to make it quite a scrap there for third place.
Well, Jones has held on to Crichton's tail all day. He's in 5th spot on the racetrack, and that's a very, very big performance for a 2.5-litre car.
He certainly throws it around. There's Alan Jones, you can see coming through. We'll get the head-on shot now down AGC straight with Robbie Francevic in the Volvo. Neville Crichton getting closer all the time. They're already putting a lap on another car, and Jones will duck in here on the inside. Look at him throwing that little yellow Alfa around. And it's about here that probably Neville will start to get a little frustrated with the Volvo. You have to get onto the brakes really hard, get it pointed the right direction. Then it all becomes such a probably a worthless exercise, because once they reach the front straight, the Volvo with the wick up starts to run away, and they don't catch it again until they come in under the braking to Valvoline corner. There's Crichton, car number 31. Currently second in points in the Touring Car Championship behind Jim Richards.
Look at Crichton pulling out, having another go.
Neville's the first guy to tell you, he's not a sprint racer. He's he's into the enduros. Look at Jones, will you? Alan Jones is all over them. He's flinging this little yellow Alpha around.
Well, they've all got a touch there.
I've said it before, he is the choice of the spectators in all the rounds of the Touring Car Championship. Can you believe this is a 2.5 litre car? It is now just trying to rope in, but he's going to join the draft to try and get them the next time down near the S's.
There is stuff peeling off Francevic's car. It's unbelievable. And Jones really harrying Crichton.
Look at this. He is so close to Crichton now as they come out. Crichton has got to try and get on with Francevic. Francevic now out accelerates the pair of them as they come down to the right-hander.
Here they come to the S's.
Oh, Neville, that's a brave one. And look at Jones up the inside.
Crichton's lost it.
Oh, Crichton's found the quick line. Don't worry about the corners. Robbie Francevic's gone to the rally course, and Crichton now manages to make it up to third. Francevic is fourth, and Jones is going to pull a giant killer here on the outside of the Turbo Volvo, and does it. What a drive.
Oh, goodness gracious me. That was sensational stuff through the Castrol S's.
You know the great thing about Group A, and there have been a few race car drivers lamenting Group A and its introduction to Australia, as Jones goes in underneath Robbie Francevic. And that is so many different makes and models that we're seeing being competitive, and the passing and the repassing. No longer have we got three makes dominating the Touring Car Championship.
Running 1, 2, 3 from start to finish.
Well, we are watching just one great Touring Car Championship round here today at Calder International Raceway. Race leader Jimmy Richards. Second place, of course, is held by Dick Johnson, and up into third is Neville Crichton. Let's recap the placings.
That's the way they stand with 15 laps remaining in round 6 of the Touring Car Championship. Richards up front, Johnson second, and Crichton in third place. 12 laps remaining in the Eurobox Trophy, round 6 of the Australian Touring Car Championship, and this is the go for third and fourth place between Neville Crichton and Alan Jones.
They've been hammering away for the last 10 laps. Just back behind them is John Harvey in the 05 Commodore. At the moment, though, Neville Crichton is holding down third place, and Alan Jones fourth. John Harvey is fifth, and Robbie Francevic is sixth. So Francevic's tyres going off of whatever problem he has, dropping him off the pace and back through the field. Bad luck for him. But this has been the real scrap for the last 5 laps.
Up front, Jimmy Richards leads, Dick Johnson second. Now Crichton in third spot, and Jones still clinging to his exhaust pipe. And Harvey beginning to reel them in as the race winds down with 11 laps remaining.
Neville Crichton, very quick indeed. Got through on the inside there, coming up to that slower car, Peter Behag, whoever it was, sorry, as they came into the bottom corner. But you'll notice Jones will drop off, but picks Crichton up down through the S's. And how he picks him up on the run down to Glow Weave.
A little bit of loose rear there on Crichton's car as well. They really have been giving each other a bit of knuckle out there today in this round of the championship.
Well, they've gone over the halfway mark. We're into round 6 now of 10, and they dropped their worst performance. At the moment, Jim Richards looking pretty safe as he steamrolls away in the points battle. But 31, Neville Crichton, Mr. Consistency for the JPS BMW team, trying to lock up that third placing. That'll keep him up second overall in points.
Mike Winier and Bob Holden both move over wisely and make way for Crichton and Jones.
And Jones comes through. Bob Holden will probably wave Neville Crichton through on the inside, and Jones zippity-zap down on the inside as well. Great entertainment for the spectators who have been coming along to the Touring Car Championship rounds. Most of it provided by the efforts of Alan Jones in the Network Alpha, the Ignis-sponsored car, who has really been a giant killer in amongst the Mustangs, the Commodores. 2 Valvoline corner again, and Neville Crichton still with third place nailed down, and Alan Jones trailing him. John Harvey, the next one, back behind them.
No longer seems to be closing on this pair. In fact, they've got away from Harvey just a little bit in the last few laps. So Harvey safely in 5th spot on the racetrack at the moment, but really not in touch now with Crichton and Jones. Up front, of course, Richards, the leader, with Johnson in 2nd place. And here's the second of the BMWs with Alan Jones hard on his heels. And while they continue to dice there, let's go to the pits and to Neil Crompton.
Thank you very much, Gary Wilkinson. Well, as you know, one of the early casualties in the race was Peter Brock, but Peter's come back into the pits once again. What happened?
It blew all the water out of the cooling system. Just blasted out the right-hand side of the bonnet there, and I cruised for a little while just to see what would happen, and it started to blow smoke. I lost power dramatically, so I thought better come out of the pits. So brand new car. I guess I'll call the pits and have a good look to see what caused it all, but that's fun racing.
What happened in that early incident when the tyre went down? Was it just a tyre problem, or did you have a valve problem?
I didn't have a tyre problem or a valve problem. I had a Volvo driving in the left-hand door, and he broke the tyre valve in the wheel as I was going down the main straight. The air just escaped out of the tyre, and that was it. So the car hit it, yeah.
There's been very clean and close racing in the Australian Touring Car Championship for the first 5 rounds, and certainly in the last couple of years there hasn't been as much pranging as there is today. What's your attitude to that?
Well, I don't know. I suppose that the nature of the circuit doesn't help. It's a very tight, twisty track. We all know that. Passing chances are limited to a couple of areas, so drivers get a bit desperate, a bit hot under the collar. I don't know how Robbie drives. I guess we're finding out. You know, that's all in motor racing. I've got no real feelings one way or the other. I think it was Sandown or somewhere he probably wouldn't find as much going on, or Bathurst you wouldn't find that sort of thing going on. There's room to move.
John Harvey doing well in the 05 car.
Yeah, he's hanging in there. He's just sort of doing about 50 dead. He's got the car set up very much the same way we've had it over the last 2 meetings, and it's proving to be pretty good today, actually.
Thanks, Peter. Best of luck next round. So Peter Brock out of round 6 of the Australian Touring Car Championship here at Keilor International Raceway.
Thank you, Neil. And there is our race leader, Jim Richards, in car number 62.
Coming up on the tail end of Colin Bond, who just a moment ago slipped past Francevic. So that puts Colin in 6th position on the racetrack.
Dick Johnson is still there running in 2nd place, just not far behind Jimmy Richards.
Well, Dick Johnson, can you haul him in with 5 laps remaining or not?
Hang on, fellas. You getting me there, Mike, or
Dick
not?
Johnson just a little busy there. Dick, 5 laps remaining. Can you haul that BMW in or not?
I don't know, mate. I'm trying. It's got too much squirt in a straight line.
It's been a bit rough and ready out there today, Dick.
Yeah, mate. We've had 1 or 2 altercations. Here we go again, mate. We could get this guy easy. I will if you don't get out the road.
Did the right thing by you?
Yeah, he sure did. It's good to see.
Looks like Bondi up in front of you, is it?
Certainly is. But I think he's about a lap down.
Tyres holding up okay?
Actually, I'm absolutely surprised. They're damn good. It took a while for them to come on in the early stages. She looked like a spoon in a bowl of custard floating around the place. But once they come on, they haven't gone off.
Jim, when you get, Dick, when you get the parts that you need in the next homologations in August, how much more competitive do you think that'll make your Mustang?
It should be about as competitive as the BMW is now. And, you know, with just that little extra speed in the straight and the way this car handles and stops, I think we might have the better of them. But bear in mind that Brock and company are getting all their fancy bits through.
Dick, for the next round of the Touring Car Championship, we start heading up to your home territory. Is that going to be any advantage to you?
I don't think so, not surface. I'm dying for Lakeside, though. Boy, oh boy. That is one hell of a circuit. And I tell you what, all the people up there will want to come out because it's going to be one hell of a race.
Well, thanks very much for your time again today, Dick. We've been following a great drive for second.
Thanks, Mike.
Dick Johnson. There's Kent Bagent from New Zealand over here campaigning the BMW. First start in the Touring Car Championship was at Adelaide, and today having his first start on Australia's smallest course here at Calder, running 8th on the road.
Only just over 2 laps remaining, so he's not really going to improve his position too much. In fact, yes, 2 laps exactly remaining for the race leader, Jim Richards, so Kent is not going to be able to improve too much between here and there, but it's been a pretty good showing for the man that came across completely untried under Australian conditions for his first outing last week at Adelaide and has backed up so well here at Calder.
The man who's putting the pressure on him, of course, to get past is Alan Jones in car number 27, just locking a brake on the approach there to Valvoline Corner as they move now onto the back straight. There's Robbie Francevic still soldiering on. I tell you what, he's got plenty of hits on the racetrack, and he's got a few verbal hits off the racetrack today. He certainly brought this race alive. There's Jones now getting the better of Bagent, heading down to the Castrol S's. Coming up now towards 1 lap to go, and Jim Richards in car number 62, the JPS BMW, leads. Dick Johnson carrying race cam, running 2nd on the road, car number 17, and Neville Crichton in car number 31, the 2nd of the BMWs, running in 3rd. What more can you say about Jimmy Richards of New Zealand? This has been one of the hardest races of the season for Richards, make no mistake whatsoever. He comes down through the gears to Glow Weave, comes out of Glow Weave, and now heading along the finishing straight. And Jimmy Richards for round number 6 looks well on his way to the National Touring Car Championship. First in the Keilor round goes to Jimmy Richards. Very close across the line. 2nd goes to Queensland's Dick Johnson. And about to finish 3rd across the line will be Neville Crichton of New Zealand in the black BMW. What a race. What a performance from Jimmy Richards in car number 62. So many drivers made a tremendous race out of this. Let's recap the placings for you. Round 6 at Keilor. Richards, the winner in the BMW. 2nd, Johnson in the Mustang. 3rd, Crichton in the BMW.
First for Jim Richards. Again, you've greeted the checkered flag. You're not bad at this caper.
Well, it's better than coming 2nd, I'm going to assure you, but it's real hard work.
Jim, 3 out of 6, but by gee, it was a little bit rough and ready out there in patches today.
Well, it was just that the cars were so even. The only place you had a chance to make up any ground was sort of in the turns, and where one person would be a little bit slow, you had to sort of keep your momentum going, and the odd touch did happen, but, you know, I think all the drivers know that that's all you can do, you know.
Jim, we were saying during the commentary that Group A has had its knockers, but I think this is the kind of racing that's going to bring the public out.
Well, I'm sure it is, yes, and it'll only get better.
3 wins out of 6, and there looks like no stopping it.
Is that 3 or 4 wins?
Oh, I'm sorry. Is it 4 wins out of 6? Sorry, yes, you're right. So, yeah. Yes, you're right, because Sandown went to Peter Brock and Robbie Francevic won Simmons Plains.
That's right.
No stopping you?
Well, you know, we'll keep going as fast as we can, and obviously if we're fast enough, we'll win.
All right, the bloke that might peg you back if you don't watch yourself is Dick Johnson, and we might have to make our way back to Dick if we can. Where is he? He's still in the car, in fact. They haven't been able to prize him out yet, so let's work our way back there and talk to... where is he gone? Come on, you Queenslander. What are you doing over there? Come over this side of the border. Johnson. What are you doing?
Oh, mate, look at my car.
Look at your car. What's wrong with it?
It's got a couple of bends in it, but we'll fix it.
Mate, you took off a few pounds, I think, during that race.
Yeah, one could say that. But it's damn hard work around here. You know, like 60 laps around here. Was that an endurance race or was that a touring car round?
Well, by the look of you, it was an endurance race. I was just saying to Jimmy Richards, this is the kind of racing that gets the public in there.
Exactly, mate, and I just hope that a lot more come to watch it because that's just a sample of what's coming up, I can tell you.
You said just a few moments ago that surface is not going to be any advantage to you come Lakeside. Do you think you can finally get by this big black mother?
Well, I got by him once today. That's half a start, isn't it? So I think when Lakeside comes, because they've got a lot of corners there that flow one after the other, and it's a very fast circuit with a lot of bumps, this car will be superb. And I think Jim and them might find the pinch.
Well, consistency is a big plus for BMW. Not only Jim Richards taking out his 4th win in the series today, but Neville Crichton coming on with a very solid 3rd placing once again. Neville, congratulations. It's all looking on the up and up for the BMW team.
Yeah, I don't care to see one of those yellow Italian go-karts again.
There were bits and pieces hanging off everybody's car out there today. It was a bit wild and woolly.
That was hard work, I tell you.
OK, we'll let you go. I know you want to get and have a good cool shower because it really is hot out here today. I was looking for Alan Jones, who came in 4th place in the 2.5 litre Alpha after hounding Neville Crichton all day, and he really did turn in a very, very impressive performance. Colin Bond didn't finish all that far back either, so they've really given a terrific performance in this Eurovox Trophy race here at the Keilor International Raceway today. But there's no doubting, no disputing, Jim Richards, the winner again, and he's, as he quite rightly pointed out to me, that makes 4 wins out of 6 races so far. Right now, let's take you back to Mike Raymond.
Thank you, Gary. Jim Zarafos started the Laser Series at Amaroo Park in rather spectacular circumstances. I don't think he wishes to recall it, but he's back here at Calder today to compete in the ongoing Goodyear Series, and a little happy with a new car, but unfortunately not enough time to be fully competitive.
No, unfortunately, the other car was extensively damaged in the incident at Amaroo, and we decided to start off with another car, a brand new car, in order to keep competitive. But we only had a chance to do a minimal number of testing laps, so the car is a little unrefined at the moment.
We've just watched the Australian Touring Car Championship round here today, and for the amount of prize money that's involved, then you look at the series that you're competing in with a lot more prize money.
Yes, there is a lot of prize money, but the series is still fairly expensive, although the cars are initially fairly cheap. But you have to spend the time and money to be competitive.
What would the accident at Amaroo Park, when you parked the car and then the next lap 2 other cars arrived and ran into the side of it, what does that represent as far as you're concerned? You've had to put the car away and start all over again.
Yes, well, the new car, the original car, cost us a total of $15,000 to get it to the first meeting. This car here was a little cheaper than that because we were unable to get a cheaper body shell, but it took a lot more effort to get it here.
It's always been said in Australia you can't make money out of motor racing, but can you break even?
Only if you're very lucky. You don't plan on breaking even. I think you've got to count on a substantial deficit.
Well, today, of course, with so many cars here, what's the game plan? Being a little back on the grid and then hoping to split them in the first corner?
I think this circuit's a little bit difficult for these cars to do any safe overtaking. So the whole idea of the exercise is to qualify well and to keep your nose clean and not to get any more dints.
And not to park it anywhere.
And don't park it near the circuit, no, definitely not.
OK, Jim, thanks very much. Jim Zarafos, who, of course, will be one of the leading contenders in the Goodyear Laser Series. And that'll be coming up after we take this break.
It's going to be a slight change of pace for our next event on the program, the Goodyear Car Owners Club Laser Series Round 4, but still the action will be very good just the same. Let's take a look at how they'll line up. On row number 1 is Mark Gibbs on pole position with a time of 58.05. Alongside him, Ken Douglas. On the second row, Peter Dane. Alongside him, Mal Rose. On the third row, Jim Zarafos with Mark Scope from New South Wales. Behind them, we've got Shane Press and Richard Mork, John Giddings, John Clinton, Baron Robertson and Tony Theocastri. So, the field out on their warm-up lap for their 8-lap journey around the 1.61 kilometre Keilor International Raceway. And a very, very interesting setup at the moment in this particular series. In fact, well, you'd virtually say, Gary, the richest series in Australian motorsport at the moment. There's $80,000 as a total prize pool, and for an absolute minimum investment of around about $12,000 or $13,000 for these cars.
Yes, but there have been quite a few engine rebuilds, I understand, and I think the price of racing these cars has gone up just a little.
I think probably the introduction of so much prize money has been a boom because they wanted competitors for this series, and with people like Cheviot and Valvoline who have thrown in, Goodyear, of course, quite a few of these sponsors to build up the ante, so it has actually persuaded so many drivers to go and try the Goodyear Car Owners Club Laser Series.
Well, one bloke that knows how to try hard is Mark Gibbs, the man that's on pole position for this race. He's pretty lucky to be starting off pole position. In fact, he was lucky he wasn't shuffled back to the rear of the grid after a little incident earlier today in a preliminary race. He was leading and under challenge from the series leader, Ken Douglas. And to shake Douglas off, he took the shortcut across the infield. And, in fact, did manage to shake off his opponent and go on to score quite a good win. But he got a very sharp slap over the knuckles from the stewards for doing it.
If ever they put the rally cross track back in here, he's a firm favourite. Well, a lot of cars in this one and quite a few drivers to follow.
Well, Neil mentioned there's going to be a slight change of pace. I don't think anybody's going to knock that for a moment.
No. Mark Gibbs, clearly the fast man in practice yesterday with a 58.05.
10 seconds and they'll be away. This is a long series, 8 or 9 rounds altogether, but for big prize money, as Neil mentioned.
The field roars away from the line. Ken Douglas grabs the jump-in car number 5 alongside Mark Gibbs. Douglas, the series leader, with 25 points. Down towards Valvoline for the first time in their 8-lap journey, and it's Gibbs who has the lead. Douglas on the outside in second position. I think it's Peter Dane giving him plenty of curry through the right-hander. Look at this.
Oh, wait. Oops.
Shane Williams clobbers somebody.
They've all managed to sort themselves out through that corner, and they now work down AGC straight with Mark Gibbs, 21 it was. Bernie Hanley. Bernie was in trouble in the top corner.
Sounded like Bernie to get out of shape, isn't it?
Well, these things have got doors and a roof over the top of them. They're a little different to the Formula V. Just look at them picking up the back wheels. A little tap-tap and a nudge-nudge as they head down to Glowweave for the first time.
Gibbs the leader. Peter Dane in car 41 has slipped through to take second place in the race through Glowweave and on to the main straight as they come down to complete 1 lap. This is an 8-lap event at Keilor International, and Gibbs leads them across the start-finish line from Peter Dane and Ken Douglas in third place. Then 44 is Mal Rose, and car 29 is Shane Press. Stream through onto the back straight once more, nose to tail racing. But the top 3 seem to have just a little up their sleeve.
Mark Gibbs was the winner of the first round of this series, Gary, back at Oran Park. And, of course, there's been some spectacular racing on the 7 network at rounds 2 and 3 at Amaroo Park near Sydney. This 4th round here today promises to be a beauty because the point situation at the moment sees Ken Douglas leading with 25, Peter Dane in second with 24, Mark Scaife from Gosford with 23, Mark Gibbs with 18, Shane Williams with 14. They score the top 10 place getters at the end of the race from 10 points down to 1. And it'll be cutthroat stuff to the end. Douglas in hot pursuit right in the slipstream at the moment of Peter Dane. Mark Gibbs with clear road ahead of him and not too many people too close behind. There's the gap. Dane, the man under pressure in car 41. Goodyear tyres, Cheviot wheels, a roll cage, a harness, a special strut kit from Motorcraft, and Ford dealers, and Jim Zarafos involved with some action again. Goes out into the grass.
Was pushed out into the grass.
Richard Mork, I think, was the man responsible for all of that in the red car.
Almost got one of the Berry markers. Not a very good idea.
Jim can't stay out of trouble in this series so far.
No new car for today. He was hoping to keep it straight too. It's number 5, Kenny Douglas, coming right in behind Peter Dane, looking for second. As they come out of Glowweave corner and head back up the straight in this 8-lapper, the Goodyear Coroner's Club Series, round number 4.
$1,500 for the winner at the end of this event.
That's today's race only.
That's just today's race, that's right. For overall win in this point score series, $3,000. And not a bad encouragement award either, Gary. $2,000 for the best find in the series.
There's the leader, Gibbs, going through. Ahead of Dane, Douglas, Malrose. Zarafos is still back there in the pack, despite the little mishap on the previous lap.
To the Castrol S's again.
Listen to the tyres squeal as they stream through here. How would you like to be driving through there, the late afternoon sun and the huge cloud of dust that they invariably throw up when they get a wheel off on the S's?
You're not wrong. Once again, they come out of Glowweave corner. Back along the straight, Mark Gibbs in car number 13 continues to lead. Car number 41, Peter Dane in second, and Ken Douglas, car 5, in third. He's had the wood on them this weekend, Mark Gibbs.
Certainly looks a little bit tidier in the second heat than he did in the first, that's for certain. Behind the top three, I think it's still Richard Mork by the look of it in the red car. As Gary mentioned before, Jim Zerafos hanging in there as well. And watch Ken Douglas here on the left of screen as he ducks and dives and looks for a way through on the inside. 2 wheels to try and find that gap.
Ducks and dives, he did a nosedive.
Look at this. He's got it all crossed up again as Peter Dane. Inside, rear wheel off the deck as they come out of blow weave.
Well, they're helping to make the race for Mark Gibbs, who's had a trouble-free run up front. And opens up a gap now of about a dozen car lengths over Peter Dane and Ken Douglas. Melrose still holding down 4th place. And then car number 9, Richard Mork, who shouldered some of the opposition out of the way to get up to where he is on at the moment on the racetrack.
Yes, he didn't miss them.
So Gibbs really withstanding the pressure quite nicely here at the moment. He's got around about 5 or 6 car lengths. There's the gap, first to second. Peter Dane in second. Still holding out Kenny Douglas. Behind him, Melrose. Behind him, Richard Mork.
David Brabham has started to get a bit of a go on too with 3 laps remaining and has moved up to 5th spot.
Brabham is in 6th place in the championship at the moment. He shares that placing with Jim Zerafos, both on 11 points.
Yes, Brabham just coming round there at the top of Glow Weave and attaching himself to the end of this long line. In 5th place over the start-finish line, young Brabham having just got past Richard Mork. So it's Gibbs, there he goes. Dane, Douglas, Rose, there's Brabham and Mork. So pretty good performance from young Brabham here. He's not far off the place getters.
It's been nice to see Sir Jack here too over the weekend, looking at all his practice sessions. Just having a little word in his ear from time to time.
David qualified in 13th position on the grid, so it's not a bad performance, you know, to get up that far, considering that all the cars are so evenly matched.
It's nice to see, isn't it, that a man like Sir Jack Brabham, having been the World Formula One motor racing champion, can come out here as a spectator and still enjoy a day's motor racing in this kind of category as a spectator.
Yes, indeed.
1 lap remaining.
1 to go, and it looks like no change of position. But Mark Gibbs, car number 13, dropping into Valvoline. And now onto the AGC back straight. Peter Dane still keeping the pressure in. Ken Douglas is there as well as they move down the back straight towards the Castrol S's for the final time. So
Dane is getting a little closer here. He's left his run a bit late though. And Gibbs, I think you'll find, is going to be able to hold on quite comfortably to take the checkered flag in this round of the Goodyear Car Owners Club Series.
That'll boost his point score to 28. Ken Douglas would go on to 34, Peter Dane on to 32, so a great performance here from Mark Gibbs. A nice try from Peter Dane, and of course Ken Douglas in there in 3rd position. Great stuff from the boys in round 4 of the Goodyear Car Owners Club Laser Series.
And the checkered flag drops on the field at the end of 8 laps and reveals the winner as being number 13, Mark Gibbs. 2nd placing, car 41, Peter Dane, and 3rd, car 5, is Ken Douglas.
well, there's one thing you couldn't say about today, is that we didn't have enough action, Gary.
Well, as I said, it's the kind of motor racing that people pay their money to see, and that makes people change channels to watch, for which we're grateful, and it's the kind of motorsport that we're going to continue to bring you through 85.
Let's have a look at the point standings after today's 6th round of the Australian Touring Car Championship. Jim Richards on 138. He leads. Neville Crichton, teammate, 112. In 3rd is Dick Johnson on 106. Alan Jones is next on 94. And Peter Brock on 88. Kevin Bartlett, of course, still on 75.
Our next motor race meeting is round 7 of the Touring Car Championship at Surfers Paradise on May 19. Don't forget to stick with us on the 7 Network for that date. On behalf of Neil Crompton and Mike Raymond, I'm Gary Wilkinson. Join us again then.